It's 11:59 at Radio Free America. This is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
And welcome everybody to another edition of a live conversation. This time it's in reaction to some decisions that were made yesterday, Tuesday, December 18th, about the bump stocks and an ATF reinterpretation dictated by the executive branch. So lots of conversations happening, obviously, but we're not here to add more confusion to the mix or just more chatter. We are here to attempt to talk about, find some options and actions that people can take to do more than just shake their fists at the sky. Thanks, Gary, from User Gary over on YouTube and on Gun Channels and on Gun Streamer and on Full 30. And on Full 30 and on guntube.org. Thanks for jumping in.
Hey, you're welcome. Thanks for the invite.
That I don't normally do them in the middle of the day like this, but I've seen a lot of chatter going around, and I figured it's time to open up the room. And we've invited quite a few people via email. We rebroadcast this over on guncahannels.com, a community that we built to foster communications like this or conversations like this. And anybody who would like to join in the room, jump over to Gun Channels and we can send you a link. And we're here to talk about the decision, but not just to shake our fists at the sky, like I say, instead to see what actions are being taken so that we can see as individuals what options we have to take immediate action or to provide feedback on this. And then ideally have some conversation about other things that we can do as a community, as individuals, as content creators, as voters, as independent people to do something positive, right? So we'll wait for a bit here. I don't want to, not here to give a speech or anything, so I don't want to make Gary say everything, but I'm going to start off with, this is not the first time we've had this situation. Since I've been in the fight since, well, I've been aware of the fight since the early 2000s, kind of got back into guns and became aware of the conversation about guns that was going on online and was interested in it, became part of it, tried to encourage more of it and influence the direction of that conversation at times. We've created communities in response to the waves of apathy and concern that have come over us as a community. Unfortunately, almost always those waves or those fluctuations come in response to situations like this. And at times we've done really well at responding to situations like this. At times we failed miserably. At times we've come together as a community in a beautiful way that could not have been coordinated, a natural, happenstance of a bunch of free individuals who have a common goal. And it's been awesome. And then other times we've just been asleep at the wheel and it just, we let a train wreck occur. So this isn't the first time this has happened. And I'm certainly not interested in capitalizing or exploiting these situations. We see a lot of people who are becoming more and more aware that there are definitely entities out there that are more than willing to deal with these ups and downs because they create turbulence and that we just profit off of that, whether it be selling shirts or selling memberships or selling something. This is a repetitive thing, and my goal has been for a long time now, since about 2010 or 11, to do something to disrupt that pattern. I believe that we're led into these ambushes either intentionally or as the consequence of deliberate strategy on the opposite side, the people that are big state, the people that don't appreciate individual freedom, they don't understand it and they fear it. Those people typically are against the individual possession of property. especially firearms, but other things as well. And those people, again, will either have enough influence and time and ability to actually have a strategy and work and put it into place, or I think by their persistent efforts in a direction, inadvertently accomplish uh, these situations. And I feel that we as a gun community act too predictably. That we're a known equation that they can punch us, and we're going to swing back and not swing, like a pendulum. They're going to be able to punch us with any amount of effort, any amount of energy, and they know they're never going to get an equal amount of energy back. It's going to take us as a community an amount of energy to accept that pressure or accept that punch, and we're going to swing in the opposite direction for a minute. We're going to gather our resources and swing back, but we never swing back enough to knock that son of a bitch off its feet. Just like a punching bag, it's going to swing back with less force. We lose force in that swing of that pendulum, and we have too many resources available to us. There's too many people that are woke. There's too many people that are aware of the situation that we do not need to continue that. We, the people that see that issue, can be the grease in that fulcrum, right? That can allow that pendulum to come back and knock that son of a bitch off their feet. 1994, when the assault weapons ban was passed, there was a massive recall there was a massive change in power as a result. And that echo, that the result of that, the consequence of that action was basically the fear of us as a community for like a decade. They've lost that fear. They know that they can get a predictable response from us, and they use that against us. So we're here to have a conversation to disrupt that system and to look for valid options and actions that we can take. Again, we have links out there to a bunch of people in the 2A activist community. They're welcome to join. This is an impromptu chat, so they can't, we understand, but you're more than welcome if you're listening. And we'll see some people over here chatting on the side of the platform, on this platform that hates guns. And then we see nobody over on Gun Channels. So I'm going to link over here to Gun Channels again. And I'll let Gary say something while I see if this is actually a call or if this is garbage again. Or not. So Gary said over on there, if you want to join us over on Gun Channels, feel free. It is the middle of the day, so if you want to chat, feel free. Let's start seeing some links. Gun Channel or YouTube won't let you post links. One of the reasons we built Gun Channel, so that we can actually have an effective conversation. If you'd like to join that conversation, even if you can't join in live, head over to Gun Channels and drop links. What we're trying to do is find the various efforts that are being done, even the day after a situation like this. So we know the big ones, Gun Owners of America. We know that firearms policy has already had actions in place, so we'll start digging into those. But if anybody knows other ones out there, please send them over. I've seen some interesting memes out there. So if people have stuff that can be effective, we can share those. Further, got anything to add to that? Anything?
It just seems like in response to a lot of the things that are being done against us, they're attacking our sources of income. On top of everything else, it appears a lot of people just want to go away. We can't go away. We have to be in so many places they can't make us go away. We need to get louder. We need to clarify our message. I mean, we can, and I'm not dogging anybody here, but we can't just go online and shout at the top of our lungs, shall not be infringed, and try to get our message across that way. But I think we need to go out on social media and present our case clearly.
Yeah, in multiple ways, right? And to the effect, on our platform, on each of our, I don't want to say platforms, but each of our projects, each of our channels or whatever, we each reach different people. And we all have our friends and family and people that we work with, people at church and school that might monitor or be aware of our postings. And like you say, yelling about shall not be infringed. How effective is that as communication? If someone yelled at you, you know, meat is murder or fur is murder or one of them things, how effective is that, you know, to have that conversation with you? So how can you expect it to be effective the other way? I'm a little upset. What the hell is going on with FPC here? I don't see anything on their website about it right now. A lot of stuff going on in California, I understand that. So this is the actual ban. So I don't see anything over here. Owners of America has it right here on top. Of course, you can contribute and need money, but let's see what they offer as far as options here. So this is from Gun Owners of America, and we'll drop this link here on Gun Channels.
I see Sandhills is out there in the Gun Channels chat.
Here.
And there.
And so that was the Gun Owners of America suit thing here. All right, so let's take a look at it. Oops. All right, saying this is from yesterday. Gun Owners of America's 2 file suits. They have not yet, but they're funna against the ATF bump stock ban. So the ATF announced it's long expected. So long expected. So we know they had that discussion. Was it strategically effective to sit quietly since the question and answer period? Or would it have been more effective to wage an actual campaign that, you know?
I think they caught us sleeping.
Worse than sleeping. We intentionally took a nap. In other words, it's not like we were just minding our business. This is something that they told us was coming. And anyway, so I want to assure you that Gun Owners of America has already prepared a lawsuit against the ATF and the Department of Justice to seek an injunction protecting gun owners from those unconstitutional regulations. We will be filing our lawsuit as soon as the ATF regulations are officially published. As written, this case has important Second Amendment implications for gun owners. After all, in the coming days, an estimated 500,000 bump stock owners will have the difficult decision of either destroying or surrendering their valuable property, or else risk felony prosecution. GOA will argue that courts should be highly suspect when an agency changes its interpretation of a statute in order to impair the exercise of an enumerated constitutional right. Okay.
Hey, Corbs, I had a question here, Bossman. Is this an actual, like, in the books law, or is this an executive order, or what? Because, you know, it kind of.
So we have the 1934 Gun Control Act, or the 1934 National Firearms Act, which, when there was concern that individuals owned any firearm, the government decided to define firearms and restrict or regulate a portion of those defined firearms. Those definitions include the firearms like a handgun, like a rifle, like a shotgun. Then they define the registered, or the firearms that need registration, and that's the short rifle, short shotguns. It's destructive devices, meaning anything over a certain diameter barrel, and full auto, anything that can fire more than one round with a single pull of a trigger, and then any other weapons, which they created a little later to include anything that wasn't basically in those definitions, such as a cane that's a firearm, or a wallet, or some sort of a thing that doesn't necessarily fall into the other definitions of a firearm. So that they then decided to regulate and require registration and stuff on a tax on all those other firearms. So what they're doing with this is an executive decision was made and told to the executive branch to reinterpret the 1934 definitions to include the device that allows simulated rapid fire. So something that can manipulate the rate of semi-automatic fire is now being defined as of yesterday as a machine gun. So all appropriate registration and regulation is going to be imposed. There's no such thing as an amnesty for the 1934 anymore. So they're not going to amnesty the bump stocks and say, for example, if they said tomorrow that braces were short barrel rifles and shotguns, but they might say, so all you have to do is file your $200 tax and you can keep your property as long as it's regulated. Nobody said in here that you can register these bump stocks, mainly because of the 1986 Firearm Owners Protection Act, which included the Hughes Amendment that restricted a full auto firearms from being manufactured or transferred to any civilian, non-military, non-police entity since September 1986. So because these are being redefined as a machine gun and there's no legal option to acquire a machine gun, there's no option for registration or tax, and you have to destroy.
Yeah, it came straight from Trump. It didn't go through like the legislative branch or anything like that, right? It just came straight from him. That's
my understanding.
Well, the executive branch of government is responsible for enforcing and dealing with the registration, the regulations of whatever power, right?
Yeah.
And it's within their realm or whatever to, unfortunately, because the Congress has delegated responsibility to the executive branch, it's now been like the precedent has been that the executive branch has both the job of regulation and enforcement. So instead of just being enforcement, which is what they're tasked with, they're also doing a bunch of regulation stuff.
Yeah.
And they have the tools of regulation, the books, the words. They can reinterpret those words anytime they want. Is it a gray area? I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but
yeah, I get what you're saying there. So to me, what we need to do is kind of go after the money side of it, right? The people that are friends with the executive branch, the people who are for the executive branch, like being in power. Let's go after let's go after the people that support them. And that's the biggest thing, I think, because if we go after the money, everybody else will listen.
I don't believe that. So what are you even talking about? What does that mean?
I would even say like, say if Pepsi is one of them, right? I don't know if they are or not. We don't fucking go buy Pepsi. If somebody say Valero, which is a big thing in here in Texas, we don't go buy Valero gas. And all of a sudden, we make our voices known. Hey, this is the reason that we're not buying this. This is the reason that we're not going here. Just like with Dick's, they lost how much money?
Dick's has no consequence. Dick's is of no consequence. Dick's was a decision of a public company to make a decision, and as customers, we influenced them. I understand with what you're saying, I believe, but number one, this happened yesterday, and you're suggesting that we rally the opinion, rally the actions, and rally the intent of enough people to influence the executive branch of government by not buying gas, and then to somehow, by not buying gas, also let them know that that's because of the bump stock ban. I suggest that's a lot of people to influence. It's a lot fewer people to influence to target the gun owners who are unaware, uninterested, unsympathetic. If we can turn our own community around, that's at least a multi-fold smaller task, and in a lot of ways is difficult because we haven't been successful at it. But I would suggest, at least I think, necessary, perhaps not. I'm interested in other people's opinions on that. But if we can't get our own community, at least for the most part, pulling in the same direction, then expecting a larger community or that same community to somehow effort financially, that's a tough one. And it can definitely send a message to a corporation. It has with other companies in other situations in the past, Kmart and the AR-15s and different things. But this one is something that, well, I just said, like I say, I think we've got some X amount of resource, and to be realistic, that's asking more of our resource than I think that we can realistically
band together. Like, say what you're saying is we would probably get a quarter of the population of R to a pro-population to actually do that.
Well, it doesn't matter what the number is, whatever the number,
whatever that number would be.
Fraction of, and then even if you didn't do something, how does that turn into, this is the reason I didn't do it? Are you going to text them every time you don't stop for gas, in other words? So if you're going to do that, then why not just text or write to your representatives daily or something? Like, there's other ways to be heard that actually, focus on the issue, why you're being heard.
Makes sense. And I was also coming from the fact that, well, let's just say that this thing goes through, right? Well, I'm sorry, not goes through, but continues to be something. What's the next thing? You know what I mean? How are we going to stop the next thing after this?
No, we're not having a theoretical discussion, dude. We're not a chat. We're not just chatting. We're talking about what we can do about this thing that happened yesterday, today. So I hear you about how you can go into the lobby if you want to just chat about like whatever, shake your fist at the wall. I've been through this too many times. One of the things we can list here is how many times we've been through this already and how often we're going to do the same result, get together and complain. We've created these channels so that we can have conversations. We created these pipelines, these channels of communication so that we can utilize them when necessary. Yep. That's what I'm trying to do right now. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and ban this guy. And then we'll delete that stupid ass comment. I already did. So then told Trump told the ATF to reinterpret the NFA to include bump stocks as machine guns. So that's what they did. Yep, exactly. That's their job. And that means that you can just as easily say, oops, reinterpret that, or throw that piece of paper away. And he could do the same for lots of things. The NRA told Trump the bump stock ban would red flag confiscation orders were a good idea, so he did it. Yeah, great. Yeah, awesome, Gary. We can't go back and change the past. We can go back and decide whether our actions in the past were appropriate, have some self-reflection there, some honest self-reflection. But how do we move forward? That's what we're talking about right now.
Right. I don't think we can sit here and, well, I guess I can say what I want to say, piss and moan about why we are where we are. We need to figure out how to get where we need to be.
Exactly. All right, so back to what we have as resources right now is the Gun Owners of America, an organization that's been around since 1975, started by the gun owners of California when they tried to outlaw handguns in California, and Richardson, state senator, successfully opposed that. And that strategy, he amplified the gun owners of California into the Gun Owners of America. Can't think of his name. Dude with who just got lampooned on, what's his face?
Oh God, I should know that.
Pratt. So
Pratt, yeah.
Older Pratt got started the Gun Owners of America in 1970. Well, started being the executive director or whatever in 1975, and now his son started last year as the executive director. Fight for a while. They do things at a lobbying level and at the motivational level. They allow people to write their representatives quite easily through online forms on their website. And for things like this, they're good at mobilizing the community. And as the NRA has been fluctuating, to say it the best, I guess, or to be nice about it, in their dedication to our rights, the Gun Owners of America has remained solid and has been a viable option for people that are looking for a large organization at the national level that's a no compromise position on Second Amendment issues. All right, so what we're looking at is their website, and on their website they've got this link to I guess an article they wrote yesterday in response to the news, and we're down to about here. So they asked for money because none of this can happen without money. We're capitalists after all. Nobody's handing out nothing. Your money, aside from your time, is one of your most critical resources, and it's yours to distribute. So I don't know how many movies you watched this year, how many video games you might have bought, how many sports games you went to, how many extra helpings you went to at some kind of fancy restaurant. I don't know, pick any kind of luxury thing that we do in a capitalist society and richest country on the planet, living at one of the safest times in all time. And, it's not shame on us. We're allowed to do what we want, but we all have to take responsibility for our actions. And what did what have we done individually? Again, take time for self-reflection there. You can blame whoever you want, but whenever you point, 4 fingers are pointing back at yourself. So let's be honest about it. Nobody's calling anybody out, but where did you put your resources? Where did you put your time? Where did you put your money in the last year, in the last 10 years? Let's look forward. The ATF regulation threatens AR-15s and other semi-autos. Then I'm reading the gun owner's letter here. We're about halfway through it. The new ATF regulations would define bump stocks as machine guns, and down the road, the new definition could implicate the right to own AR-15s and many other semi-automatic firearms. I'd suggest all other semi-automatic firearms can be bump fired. This is not in the thing, but any semi-automatic firearm can be bump fired with no device. It's simply the intent to do it. So if this is precedent, then there's nothing at all to stop them from suggesting that anything that can fire more than 1 round without a manipulation of a bolt would potentially be more lethal or dangerous or whatever, and could be considered a machine gun. Anyway, back to the gun owners thing here. ATF's new bump stock regulation clearly violates federal law, as bump stocks do not qualify as machine guns under the federal statute. Moreover, bump stocks, which have been in circulation for many years, have repeatedly been ruled by ATF as lawful to own. This ban was imposed through regulations because Congress has repeatedly refused to amend the law to ban them. So Congress, who has the ability to change laws and write laws, has not taken that responsibility, pushed it off to the executive branch. Each and every one of our representatives is responsible for that, and since there are representatives, you know where I'm going. But the ATF has no authority to radically reinterpret a statute that is clear and unambiguous. To do so would allow agency regulation to overturn the clear provisions of statutory law. So again, it's definitely a slippery slope. The more we allow the executive branch to interpret what the laws say, as opposed to just enforcing what the laws say. Will AR-15 soon be deemed machine guns? Statutory law is clear. Under 26 U.S. Code, and then it says 5845, a machine gun is a weapon which shoots automatically more than 1 shot without manual reloading by a single function of a trigger. A firearm equipped with a bump stock uses the recoil of a firearm coupled with a forward pressure exerted by the shooter to force the trigger to function more quickly than it would normally. But the trigger is required to function each time a round is discharged. Therefore, the gun cannot be said to function as a machine gun. It can sound like and look like, but it is not functioning as. I added that. Another problem with the regulation is that it's overly broad and could later be relied on to ban semi-automatic firearms in the process of trying to ban bump stocks. The ATF has previously said that bump stocks convert an otherwise semi-automatic firearm into a machine gun. But hold on a minute, if the AR-15 becomes a machine gun, or even if it is readily convertible into a machine gun, then AR-15s could become illegal as well. Think that the ATF wouldn't use this regulation to summarily outlaw semi-automatics? Maybe not right now, but you can bet their first anti-gun Democratic president to win the White House will order the ATF to do so. So by establishing precedent that the executive branch can drop these orders, what do we do when they're a different goal in mind to that executive branch? What did I get in the mail today? Got something in the mail. Let's see. It says these regulations would deny honest Americans the enjoyment of their Second Amendment protected rights. And so, based on these objections, Gun Owners of America will shortly file suit to overturn the illegal, unconstitutional, politically motivated action by ATF in outlawing bump stocks. In closing, I would ask 2 things to get some action here. For those who own or possess a bump stock, I want you to contact the ATF to turn in your bump stock. Please realize that the ATF will likely direct gun owners to sign ATF forfeiture or property receipt forms. You are not required to sign any form, but if you elect to do so, note the following. The ATF forfeiture form is a waiver of your rights and releases ATF from all liability. So read the form and talk to your attorney if you are thinking of signing it. Even if a court later decided against ATF, a person who signed this form would have no claim. Unlike the ATF forfeiture form, the property receipt form is simply an acknowledgement that the ATF has received your bump stock and you no longer possess it. If you plan to turn it in, then get the ATF to sign this form as a receipt and you keep a copy. So I guess they're giving you some technical information there if you own one. I don't know how many people out there own them. Do you guys?
No.
I do not. No.
Feel free to let us know in the chat. Again, this isn't an effort to say this, to what I'm trying to say, just soapbox here. I'm not trying to offer some speech or something like that. This is a conversation. Conversation is a two-way means of communication, and we're using the internet. You have the ability to click on a link that takes you over to a place that we built 5 years ago that costs hundreds of bucks a month to keep going, and regular gun owners like yourself pay for that. There's hardly any ads over there. It's not there's no money being made there. We're not trying to get you over there because we get $5 if you jump over. We're trying to get you to jump over and be part of the fucking conversation. Otherwise, you're just audience. You're just audience. You're just being a little being for YouTube. For everyone who realizes the freedom implications of GOA's case, please help support the case financially. So basically, they need money because they're going to have to take this to court, and that means how much it costs to go to court?
Jesus, tens of thousands
an hour. I think it's $3,000 an hour for like regular court. I don't know what it costs for like U.S. Washington D.C. court or whatever, but whatever it costs a lawyer to hang out in a hotel in Tucson or Kansas or where the hell are you, Adam?
Texas.
So whatever the hell it costs for an attorney to be there, it's probably times 4 just to live in a hotel in DC. Hopefully GOA has places there, but whatever, it's going to cost them money. And again, we have time, we have money, and we have our intent. So use it as your discretion. You can link there if you want. You'll get a tax deductible, blah, blah, blah. The costs are staggering. Our attorneys have already put out a lot of time and effort finding the best district to bring a case and getting the most authoritative witnesses. Not to mention, they've already started coordinating with the plaintiffs and researching the most effective arguments to use. So I want to thank you in advance for your help in this very important endeavor. In Liberty, Eric Pratt, which is the son of, what the hell is his name?
Larry.
Thank you. Son of Larry Pratt, and the executive director of the Gun Owners of America. So they're giving us some information about it and hopefully getting people to start thinking about this and the implications of it. And let's go back over to FPC and refresh and see if they got something over there yet. So FPC is an organization started more recently out of California with a bit of an interesting kind of start. I think it was designed to be a coalition of other gun owners' rights organizations. And I think it was started in part by the Second Amendment Foundation and then later changed organizational structures and now is a California-based, but also federally aware activist platform, and they do awesome work. They've actually been at everything I've ever been at, and I've seen them at things that I haven't been able to be, such as the gun rights policy conferences, as well as like NRA and other things that brings the community together. FPC has been active in that daily podcasts and awareness, and again action. I'm trying to say like resources, like when you click on their take action tab, you can literally take action. You can click on these links. They're going to take you to information about the situation and then forms to fill out to talk to your representatives. Let's talk a second about these. I have a little insight into these little forms that we see on pages that take you to a letter that writes to your representative. All these systems are expensive. These are used by lobbyist groups and different political organizations for like healthcare and all kinds of things. And a big chunk of the money that they spend is to keep these systems running, to make it convenient for those of us who are too lazy to freaking do this ourselves. And I'm one of those. I don't like having to open up an email and find an email in my legislator, plus have to come up with the text of the letter. Doing all of that is a big part of what they do and a big part of their costs, from what I understand. So FPC doesn't have anything up yet, but I did see something on Instagram. So let's go look at Instagram. Sandhills is kind of here, kind of listening.
Oh, man. Me, myself, Gwebs, I actually have to get back to work, man, but I appreciate the invite.
Yeah, right on. Thanks for jumping in. I know it's the middle of the day. I have an email out to dozens of people that I know that are Second Amendment authors, activists, researchers, organization members, and things like that. And when are you going to have a perfect time to meet? So I figure we'll just do it. I saw that there was a lot of fist waving in the air going on and a lot of confusion about what to do about it. and a heck of a lot of, like Gary said, moaning and groaning about the way things could have been.
Yep.
And,
all right, man, appreciate it. And that, I mean, from again, my last point would probably be just fight your representatives, man. Congress right now is probably the only ones, as well as our lawsuit with GOA, that could stop this. Appreciate it.
Right on. So trying to keep up with stuff over here. I think he's talking about Trump being a New Yorker who doesn't really know or care about Second Amendment, for sure. And it's tough, but what are we going to do? Can't change his mind anymore. Alex is saying 2-day Capitol rallies again. I think about 10 people showed up in Raleigh, North Carolina. Who cares how much showed up last time? 2-day Capitol rallies, I think, is a great idea. We should be at the Capitol this weekend in front of Christmas, right? It's tough. You think it's intent that they dropped it a week before Christmas, literally the 7 days before Christmas? Or was that an accident? Like, oops, I accidentally dropped this, potentially sweeping legislation, action here a week before Christmas.
I can't think of a better time from their standpoint. They're going to catch people, in an inactive state. Or they think so, anyway.
To do anything about it, right? And traveling, perhaps. I mean, it's as unscrupulous as Obama dropping stuff the weekend before a holiday. I mean, this is literally the same strategy, just done with the other coat, the other color coat. Okay, so Spider, it's interesting to read how the ATF explained that bump firing with a bump stock was a machine gun, but using a belt loop was not. It's strictly their opinion that made the difference. I didn't read that part, but I've been looking for that because I've heard of that. People talking about how the ATF kind of explained what is and what isn't against the rules now. But like I mentioned, you can bump fire any semi-automatic. The impulse of a semi-automatic will allow, if you keep the trigger in one place, will allow the gun to bump back and forth. A lot of people stick their thumb in their pants pocket and then kind of hip fire it that way, but that's like training wheels. You don't need to do that. Just hold it up to your shoulder, put your finger in one spot in the world, and then pull your gun forward and it'll bump fire. And that's the implication here, is that any semi-automatic firearm can bump fire with just different manual of arms, just different way of holding it. And that's the not just a slippery slope, that's the open door here that is the important one, I think, on this particular one. And of course, it's called the bump stock. There's no conclusions to Vegas that I'm aware of. If someone knows the actual follow-up to the Vegas murderer who had potentially some of these things in his room, he also had shoes on. Should be banned because that can stop somebody in the future? Probably had pants on. Do people who also wear pants have the same tendencies as that guy? He didn't use them, and they were barely there as a political reason, and that's the justification for this whole thing. Anyway, so I would like to see that. If anybody knows where that link is to the ATF part, let me know. And since you can't link on stupid YouTube because they have no interest in real conversation, head over to Gun Channels and check it out. You can drop us a link there. The way I see it, compliance only will get us more infringements like this. So what New Jersey is doing regarding their mag ban, don't comply. Well, so that's an interesting thing, and it's certainly a decision some people are going to have to make. Did the gun owners thing say potentially millions of people are going to be affected by this?
Well, I think so.
What they said. Yeah, I don't know what I said, but I thought they said millions. But I don't know. I did find somewhere in here somewhere I was linking, and I found the ATF's list of or their link to like how to destroy your bump stock, and then you open that link up, and there's 15 different PDFs there from the 15 brands, the 15 manufacturers of bump stocks, and each one has its own specific instructions on how to destroy it correctly, legally.
Well, I haven't seen that.
So there's at least 15 brands of bump stocks. Oh, I was going to go over to FPC here. And
I
there,
was looking at Second Amendment Foundation, and I'm not seeing anything there.
they don't fly off the handle. They don't have the tendency to just react so much, in my experience. So they'll probably take a minute to write something up, but I'm sure they'll be contributing. So on Instagram, Firearms Policy Coalition's handle is gun policy. So I'm looking at that, but I'm going to go back over to the side that hates guns over here and check out what people are saying. So interesting. People are going to have to decide what they're going to do, but this creates felons, and not just felons like, but felons like you own a registered NFA item, or you're in possession of a regulated NFA item. I believe it's 10 years minimum, 10 years federal violation. So that's a heck of a decision to make. 10-year federal felony or possession of a piece of plastic that sucks, but is the linchpin of potentially future do-a fight. All right, so and fight it in court. That's not all we can do. I don't agree with that. We can do all kinds of things. This isn't the olden days where we were standing by ourselves and we had to hope that there was other people out there. We have the First Amendment and all the fun stuff that the First Amendment creates, including effective communication and free communication. So if you decide that there's nothing you can do, then you've taken yourself out of the fight. We're all in the fight, whether you want to or not. It's a decision to do nothing. So we're here to talk about what we can do. Andrew's saying, we all need to write Trump and tell him why he will not win the next election. I really like that a lot. I think that's a completely valid, no?
Oh, I definitely do.
I think if he got a lot of pieces of paper letters, not just emails, but pieces of paper telling him why he is no longer supported, that's, we've talked about, I think earlier, was Adam saying, you know, a way to influence the executive branch. I think of all presidents, he probably pays the most attention to his PR, right? Maybe I'm just exaggerating.
It wouldn't take you much time to write up a letter, get yourself an envelope and a stamp. It'd cost you less than $1 and maybe a few minutes of your time. It might make a heck of a lot of difference. I mean, one person isn't going to make a difference, but we're way more than one person.
No single drop thinks it's responsible for the flood. Be the flood. So, I think that's excellent. Dano just jumped in. Thanks for jumping in. I couldn't end talking about video games today, so I appreciate it. I just had to start another one just to talk 2A. Thanks for jumping in.
No problem.
So again, we have created communities over the years. We have participated in those, and we have a lot of fun just having fun with our firearms, our property, and the way that we entertain ourselves with them in our culture or whatever. But the reason we built these channels is so that we can use them effectively when it's necessary. So we sent letters out, emails out to everybody I know who's worth a shit, Second Amendment advocates, authors, researchers, inviting them to join in. If you're out there listening and you're too scared to join in, you're making that decision on yourself. If you can't figure it out technically, Dano's an old man, he's barely able to survive. He's in here, and he's been in here for years. Gary's radioactive. He's probably got radiation poisoning, and he's still in here. So you got no excuse. If you're not in here, you made a decision not to join in. If you're listening, if you are working or something and you're not around in the middle of the day on a Wednesday, then no worries. But we have a lot of invites out there. I'm definitely challenging people to do something about it and jump in, be part of the conversation, offer valid actions people can take so that we don't just use these methods of communication, these channels that we have created to yell about what we could have done or shake fists at the sky like a bunch of jerks. Okay, so he was told by the NRA that nobody cares about bump stocks, so this wouldn't hurt his chances of re-election. Does everybody agree with that one?
No.
Nope.
Really? You don't think that Trump was told by the NRA that nobody cares about bump stocks and this wouldn't be a big deal?
Oh, he may have been told that.
Sorry, go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, I misunderstood the question. Yeah, he was probably told that, but it's not true.
Yeah, because even his advisors have agendas that they don't necessarily share directly with the president, but it's why they give the advice that they give on certain issues. Whether it's they know what the president wants to hear, and so they tell them that, or they want to guide him in certain directions so they can accomplish their own agendas.
But you don't, but So are you suggesting, Dano, are you saying that you don't think that the NRA told him that?
Well, I think whether they directly told him, I have no idea. But I think they may have, sometimes through not doing something is giving a message.
Well, that's a great point. That's a very great point. And I definitely agree with you that I'd be hesitant to suggest the NRA, whatever his name is, sat down. We don't need to promote that guy. Everybody knows who that guy is. That I don't think that he walked in one day and sat down with him at a desk and said XYZ. But I agree with that.
Fire a letter off to Trump. Tell him it's okay. No, I don't think that exists.
But
I think silence,
yes,
is what was the message.
Yes, for sure. And so either way, the effect is that the NRA told him. Again, whether or not how it happened, that message was relayed that there would be no consequence here. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
We all there?
Yes.
So what can we do to counter that? Consequence. And you don't have to fight. You can let people know. I mean, everything doesn't have to be an altercation, right? You can say to somebody, hey, you made a mistake right there. Really don't like that. You know? Anyway, so Andrew, very good points. That's why we started to chat like this. I wish you weren't on the stupid side that hates our rights and would join in over on Gun Channels, which costs nothing and is really just a bunch of people that hang out. It's going to change dramatically here in about 2 weeks. But
and by cost nothing, what he means is it's free to join and costs nothing to maintain your membership.
Correct.
Andrew has joined us on the Gun Channel side. He finally found his way over there.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for putting these great points out there. Where'd we go? Oh, I think I missed one. They explained that because the bump stock had a static shelf to rest your finger on and allowed the recoil to move the gun back and forth, it was automatic and therefore fired more than one shot. Yeah, I guess that's how they're saying it. But again, since your finger can also act as that static shelf, then the gun itself then becomes the culprit, I suspect. At least that's the ultimate road that this is the path that this road goes down, right?
Because I strongly suspect is at some point it will either through the interpretation by law enforcement, it is that the next thing to come will be is if you operate your rifle in a bump fire method, doesn't mean tool, method, i.e. your finger, you may be in violation.
Mm-hmm. And then what? If you fire too fast subsequently, like 30 seconds between rounds is not a machine gun. 10 seconds between rounds is a machine gun.
As we all in here know, but the audience may or may not know, long before bump fired stocks were around, people were bump firing their rifles with their finger.
So let's take
They won't outlaw the finger, they'll outlaw the methodology of which you were using your rifle. You can't use it in a certain way.
I'm going to take a second and stop reading the comments because I want to bring up another point here. And this is the ambush that we're in. At least this is the perspective. I've seen it now over at least a dozen situations like this in my experience with Gun Channels and with YouTube. Being around the community and aware of other people's everybody's responses to all this. And then I guess, like say from the filter of Gun Channels and the YouTube side, the stuff I'm experiencing on the internet. This is like the 12th iteration of this little dance that we've done with our representatives and with our government. All of this stuff that we're talking about is in the realm of the discussion of the NFA. So if the NFA wasn't there, none of this would be an issue. So they like us to focus on specifics and to fight amongst ourselves on the details and the facts and the particularities, when really we need to look up and realize that we're in a trench, that we're in a valley, and that they're firing, from belt-fed shit up on the hills. And we've got ourselves into this situation again by allowing them to set the situation here, the set and setting of this issue. So this all refers to the NFA. This is all under the realm of that NFA, which is what they're using to clobber us with. Every time I bring up remove the NFA, most of the time the response is that's unrealistic. That's not possible. So they want to ban all guns. That's also unrealistic and too much to ask for. But they're certainly working towards it. And if it's not deliberately, the consequences of the repetitive actions achieve that goal. And if we're not going to take the same strategy at some point and ask for everything, we're never going to see, I doubt we're going to see much difference in results. So just want to take a second there and say, even if we're going to get into the specifics of this, that's what they want us to do. They want us to get tied up in the nuance of it and, in effect, waste all that energy so that the momentum doesn't come back, that punching bag doesn't swing back and knock the fucker who punched the punching bag off his feet. We are, losing that energy in these discussions. So, to some extent, we have to be aware. Yeah, go ahead.
If you don't ask for everything, it makes it much more difficult to get something.
Good point. Well summed up. Okay, so Andrew follows up with, let's tell them they were wrong. Awesome. I really, really, really like that sentiment. That's actual deliberate action that we can take right now. Anybody could stop watching this because it's a waste of your time and write to Trump right now on a piece of paper. Now, after you come back, after you did that, and you went back to the point where you paused or whatever, now we're going on to the next question. Aren't machine guns legal? Yes, they are. They're just regulated since 1934. They're illegal to create a new one if you're not a military entity, but they are still transferable and totally legal as long as you pay a tax and register it. Not you, the gun. Gary's saying, hey, Richard or Robert and all these other people, no bump stocks here, went the binary trigger route. Okay, so you think that's safe?
Oh, no.
I 3D printed a bump stock but gave it away. Awesome. Here's.
Yeah, this starts to set the stage for that next paper cut. Again, I'm a big fan of saying death by 1,000 paper cuts. And I believe that because it's true. It's no one thing is truly the last straw. They're all little parts of straws. But after thousands become tens of thousands, sooner or later, there's no issue at all because the guns are all gone, or at least theoretically all gone, because they're all been made illegal.
So now Drew is saying, have you looked into an app for gun channels? Yes, it's $1,500 for Android, $1,500 for Apple, and we'd lose live chat. Gun Channels is a non-for-profit. It's not a non-profit. It's just that I don't run it in order to make profit. I do it in order to allow communication to happen so that we can be effective times like this. Have I looked into an app? No. I've looked into it. It costs too much, and I'm not interested in making a product that is easy to use for people that are easy and non-interested. In fact, we don't have enough funding, and we'll probably be downsizing everything. So no, it's not on the agenda, and if anything, we're going backwards. We're going to be a community, and we're not going to rely on the tech because people aren't using the tech that we have, and the infrastructure is killing us. So no, there's not going to be an app. No app. If you need an app, convenient, then maybe this isn't the fight for you. Go ahead, Dano.
Is part of what keeps Gun Channels free to get an account, let alone maintain an account, is by keeping a bare bones budget. There is barely a month to keep Gun Channels treading water, and some months it doesn't tread water. It actually goes into the red
every month. But let's not talk about that because I'm not raising funds.
But no, I'm just trying to make so that people have a better understanding of why is there not enough money for an app.
Right. There's no interest in an app, and there's not money. And I don't want money. I'm not looking to make the next easiest thing for you to use. I want you to get off your ass and learn how to use all of the internet. I want you to realize that your voice is necessary and important, and to use that voice. And I don't care if you do it on Gun Channels. Gun Channels is a place for us to get together and do it. But no, we're not efforting to be the next Facebook or to be the Facebook of guns. We simply want people that are motivated and dedicated to get together and chat about guns so that when it's necessary like this, we can we are a resource for our community and not. Anyway, so let's keep on. Binary triggers are more dangerous than bump stocks, so they will be next. Yeah, I can't even imagine why they don't fall under their definition already. So that's everything over on YouTube. Jump back over to Gun Channels. So right on. So there's jumping over here. Right on. Hey, he's 58. Oh, you're saying you're 58. Okay. He said that during a meeting with Feinstein and everyone else. He said that verbatim. Oh, so are you talking about that the NRA told him that it was no big deal?
I think so, yes.
And that sucks. And if that is, I mean, seriously, if that was a meeting and we have like video of that, then why isn't that memed up? Come on, you memes. Let's get memeing that up. I've seen some awesome ones today. We're going to jump over on Instagram here for a bit. Check those out too.
I would like to mention something that's analogous to the president as far as things he appears to be committed to. And I'll reference the transparent interview he did with some of the Democratic leaders and the wall, that he clearly made it appear that he was very dedicated towards that wall. And yet here we are a week and a half, 2 weeks later, whatever it is, and clearly now there's some wobble in that dedication. And that's the same individual that said, he was, pro Second Amendment and all these pro freedom and all these other things. Clearly he is wobbles at, and I'm trying to choose my words carefully here, on all issues as to what he thinks he can get out of that one way or the other today. There's the candidate Trump and there's the President Trump, and they are distinctly two related but different people.
Dancis saying on the Gun Channel side, everyone should watch the hearing where they passed the Hughes Amendment and get super mad. That was the biggest disgrace I've ever seen. Every time I watch it, I don't know how the hell it even came out to the way it did. It's ridiculous.
Sometimes we have, we talk about low information readers and voters and that's some sort of thing, but that doesn't stop at normal citizens. It also incorporates, unfortunately, politicians.
True.
Who, we have to vote on it to see what's in it, quote.
So I'm going to head over to Instagram here. We looked at the Firearm Policy Coalition's website. They don't have anything up yet, but they do have some info up on their Instagram already. So yesterday with 4,000 something hits already. This yesterday, no, it was 22 hours ago. It was yesterday. They announced that the bump stock thing was happening. And let's see. So I'm going to read the Gun Policy or Firearms Policy Coalition's Instagram post from yesterday afternoon. Today, attorneys for an owner of a bump stock device and 3 constitutional rights advocacy organizations followed a federal lawsuit against the real Donald Trump administration's new confiscatory there we go, ban on firearms parts. Additionally, challenging Matthew Whitaker's legal authority to serve as an acting attorney general and issue rules without being nominated to the role and confirmed by the Senate or by operation of law. A copy of the court filings can be viewed at right on. So did they do nothing? No, they already had a lawsuit in place as of yesterday. The plaintiffs also filed a motion seeking a temporary injunction to prevent the Trump administration from implementing and enforcing the new regulation. The lawsuit, captioned as, I don't know what that word is, something blah blah, is backed by FPC, Firearms Policy Foundation, FPF, and also Madison Society Foundation, MSF. So we're going to go check out what these things are in a second. Also, institutional plaintiffs in the case. Bump stocks were legal under federal law and prior determinations of the BATFE until agency issued a new final rulemaking today. Under the new rule, owners of the devices have just 90 days to surrender or destroy their property, after which they can face federal machine gun charges and carry 10 years in prison and $250,000 fines for each violation. So each bump stock you own cost you $200-something to buy, and is now going to be consequenced with 10 years in prison and a $250,000 fine for each violation. The plaintiffs are represented by attorneys Joshua Prince and Adam Kraut, a division of whatever, previously filed a nearly 1,000-page formal opposition to the proposed regulation, which included a video exhibit showing the actual operation of a bump stock device of an AR-15 on an AR-15 rifle. That opposition and its 35 exhibits can be viewed at, I got another link here. Anyone who owns a bump stock device who would like to consider participating in the case should contact the FPC, the FPF Legal Action Hotline. And in case you're listening to this and you own a bump stock and you want to be part of it, their phone number is 855-252-4510. 855-252-4510. And it's a 24-hour number. and it'll be open by the time you're hearing this. And that was their first post yesterday, letting us know that they've already filed suit as of yesterday. That post over on Instagram has 5,000 likes, 5,001 more, 4,001 more now. Looks like Roost had already liked on it, so consider checking that out. That link in here. I know the firearms policy people, they are good people. So that was their post yesterday. Let's see what they got up here today. Okay, thank you to our amazing members and donors who make lawsuits like this possible. If you are not a member yet, you can join the FPC Grassroots Army and join us today. It's joinfpc.org. Tag a friend who should be a member. And this one has 2,000 likes already. Midnight joined in here. I'm going to scroll through my Instagram feed, and I suspect we'll see some stuff here. But if you guys want to throw anything in, feel free.
No, I just thanks for doing the stream here. It's a good. I like it. Educational. I love this kind of stuff. I just heading into work. I figured I'd jump on and say hi.
Right on. Thanks for jumping in.
Yeah.
I'd like to throw a question to the panel because I'm interested in. I know what I think, but so I'm not going to state my opinion. But I'm interested in your opinions as to our current president, and granted, this is difficult to quantify, but how committed or not committed you think the president is, not the candidate, the president is, in regards to freedom-related issues, such as firearms, but not limited to firearm. Property rights is another one, amongst due process, access to due process. Where do you see our president sitting in regards to those issues and anything else freedom-related that you may think of?
Well, I think one of the things that worries me about him when you make a question, have a question like that, is he's a big business guy, right? And he's definitely the kind of dude that seems to get what he wants when he wants it over the years. He's definitely seems pretty strong-headed like that. So it's kind of a scary mentality for somebody like that to be in charge, I think. I think he wants to pretend he's more, for gun rights, obviously, than he ever was. But is he the kind of guy that's going to squash the little guy in pursuit of progress? I don't know. That worries me a little bit.
Are you talking about Trump right now? I'm kind of scrolling through and not paying attention. But if you're talking about Trump, my question would be, do you think he really knows the deal? And he's like, haha, this'll just work. Or I think their insight earlier that his counsel has been that this is not a big deal for gun owners. And as someone who isn't aware and doesn't really care, he was like, okay, and then did something. I think that that's more the case. I really don't think, I don't give him credit for being aware of our plight and then deciding this will screw them, or they won't see this, or this is not going to see this come, and I'll say this and then I'll do this. I think he's just, this is one of many issues. He's been consulted by assholes that this was something that isn't a consequence. I really don't think he's out to get nothing. I think he actually gives a shit. Probably, if he had better counsel, he probably would have said, "Oh hell no, this isn't." So I'm hoping that some actions that we can.
Yeah, he needs to find out otherwise. He needs to find out from us.
Exactly.
I agree, and that's kind of the same thing you're talking about as counsel saying like, well, you can get away with doing this, and it's profits and losses, right? Like he feels that he's going to profit more from this than lose from it. Maybe he's got some wrong information. Hopefully people speak up. I know I've done some of the emails and stuff like that about it, and I think a lot of it is for me it was based on the fact that there is no knowledge of exactly what happened out in Vegas too. That's a big deal. That was part of my letter was you don't base laws on things that aren't facts. You don't send somebody to jail because they allegedly did something. You don't do that. It's the United States,
Okay, whoever feels ready, go ahead and take the question.
Right. I'm going to go through and look at some of these. I've been scrolling through the Instagrams, and there was a couple of posts here we can chat about, I think. So aside from people putting shirts up and things, we've got this one from Official Black Guns Matter. Maj posted this one, and I'm not sure where to think on this one. So let me just open it up by itself. See the actual post. So Maj is from what? Pennsylvania, I think. Anyway, he's an activist, like feet on the ground type of activist. He's like, shows up and does things in real life, not just on the internet, and very active. And he's goes head to head with some of the celebrities on the anti-gun side on the platforms and stuff. So, he's got his own style of doing this stuff. But he posted this one, and the picture shows Dianne Feinstein rejects ATF review of bump stocks, and it looks like it's some kind of headline in an article with some kind of picture where she's pointing at a poster of an AR-15 bump stock on it. The caption of the picture from the article says, Senator Dianne Feinstein, Democrat of California, has said only broad legislation would be effective in outlawing bump stocks like she says bad words. And then, so basically she's saying that only broad legislation would be effective in outlawing the bump stock. And then his thing was Feinstein said this, not the current supposedly pro-gun, pro-2A. Feinstein, this is where we were at now. And then he says, Feinstein on Tuesday rejected a plan by the ATF to review the sale of bump stocks and other devices that can accelerate the firing power of semi-automatic weapons, arguing the ATF is not authorized to regulate them, and instead Congress must act. The ATF lacks authority under the law to ban bump fire stocks, period. The California Democrats said in a statement the agency made this crystal clear in 2010 and again in 2013's letters to Congress, writing that stocks of this type are not subject to previous or provisions of federal firearm statutes. Feinstein said if the ATF decides to regulate these devices, gun manufacturers would sue. So, in other words, back in 2017, about a year ago, right after the issue, the murderer did some atrocity, politically motivated, put a bunch of property in his room so that now politicians can use that as a reason to infringe on ours and our descendants' Second Amendment protected rights. She immediately came out and said that an ATF decision is not enough and it's not authorized. So she wants, of course, no guns. So her view of this is that we need legislation. And back a year ago, she argued that we can't just leave this to the ATF. We need to change the laws. And I think what Maj is trying to say here is that she, an anti-gunner, even knew the way the procedure should work and was pleading to her base that they need to do things in law so that they actually have teeth. And she's saying that she was not going to be satisfied with an ATF decision. So with that, do you guys think that the reason Trump did this is because he sees this as like what she considered not enough? So he's like, oh, good, I'm doing something that's not enough for her. Or is that not even an issue?
I think he thought. Side note: it's also something being an executive order that could be undone by a president versus requiring an act of Congress.
Right. So you think that he intentionally did it this way so that it could be undone?
No. I think it's much more simple. I don't know who it was that mentioned it as far as what politically he could get out of it right now versus the blowback that he hopefully would not receive is doing it right now.
Oh, okay. So you think that it was like with the intent of being pro 2A, that, hey, if I do this inconsequential, or what I've been counseled as inconsequential action, it'll appease them, make it look like I did something, but I have no actual consequence?
Well, it does have a consequence. I wouldn't say it doesn't.
Well, but I'm saying I think that was his mindset, that like of the best of both, the best of least evils, or whatever the hell it is.
I think that the 3D and 4D chess thing never existed. That's what simply people who were in echo chambers needed to tell themselves to believe that he was this super duper beyond smart guy.
So what about this thing here? Any comments?
What about general comments? Is my microphone working?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
I hear you.
I heard you.
Oh, okay. I think this thing kind of got, it seems to me it kind of slipped up. What am I trying to say here? I don't think there was enough pushback in the beginning directly to Trump. I think he thought that most people were just sort of moderate on the bump stock and that he could get by with it. He thought it was one of those things he could pass and enough people wouldn't care so that he could appease both sides, not appease both sides, but appease the left and not have too much damage on the right. So I'm not sure.
I think also too, there's a part of me that thinks that when he stepped in and said about, well, I'm going to have the ATF look into this, I kind of think maybe it was just a stall tactic. He said, well, I'll look into it. I mean, your boss says that to you all the time. Like, hey, can I get this? Yeah, let me look into it. Was he just stalling, hoping that enough time would go by that people would stop making an issue out of it either way? And, it didn't. And now it's come to fruition. He feels like he needs to make a decision.
And if I'm perfectly honest right now, I don't think there's going to be that many people that see this as a threat. You know what I mean?
Doesn't matter. That's what we're here to talk about, not what.
Well, I know. I'm just saying. I read an article in Fox News that said, gun rights advocates are up in arms. I don't see anybody really up in arms.
Well, then you're not paying attention. So let's look at the internet.
Well, I'm just telling you.
Mainstream media is what you're reporting off of, right, Tony?
I'm going out into the real world every day, and I don't hear anybody talking about it. So that's what I'm talking about.
It started yesterday.
To mainstream media.
We're in a bubble. We're kind of in a bubble in our gun community. We all get upset, but that doesn't mean that every majority of gun owners are getting upset.
All right, so we're doing something here to change that. So you're right that we didn't get up. No, I believe I agree with you that when they put the initial 3 months worth of what was it called, discussion or whatever, when they had their feedback for the potential change, that we should not have waited for that deadline and filled out our comments and then sat back and got into whatever the next AR platform was going to be, or our new caliber, or the next match, or what the next show is or something. And we could have consistently been putting forth contribution to that conversation or to that plate so that we didn't see that, so that this wouldn't have happened. Of course, we didn't do that. So now we're sitting here. So now when we're talking about if people are aware of this and how we can make people aware of it and how we can utilize these means of communication that are normally dormant and are not, and like you said, are in a bubble, and because we're preaching to the choir, because we are the gun people, we like to talk about guns. We can either talk about guns all the time and then just sit back and watch and be observers to all this, or we can talk about guns all the time and then maximize our efforts and utilize our skills and things that we've learned in our off time to effort as efficiently as possible when it's necessary. We got a lot of people in this game, and there's a lot of people that watch this because it's being broadcast on YouTube that are very YouTube centric. We've got people that are very web centric because we're all on the internet, but there's lots of people out there in the world, and reaching out to those people can be a challenge. And again, we can either continually do things ourselves and individually only and sporadically, or we can eventually figure out how to unite on message and pull in the same direction on the rope. And I think that memes are a big way to reach people that are outside of the little groups and the niches that are out there. And we're going to take a look at some of the stuff that's been going on Instagram, which is great for just one picture type of means of communication or getting a point across in a simple method. And when I typed in bump stock, the hashtag bump stock, which is pretty generic, it has no implication one way or the other. It's just the word bump stock. We've got 5,000 posts approximately, and we can see things right off the bat. One that says NRA here, Somebody's asking for the most creative way to destroy their NRA thing. Got somebody that took who's this kid? Stewie? No, what's the name of that kid?
Ralph Wiggums.
Ralph. They got Ralph's little dumb kid off the Simpsons, who's always a simpleton. And you got what's his face here holding a bump stock, and that's from a lawyer. Then you've got this one from, I don't know what this is, but I'm happy it did. Okay, so this is somebody who isn't gun friendly, I suspect. It says, what the F? I don't know how this happened, but I'm happy it did. It says in parentheses, for those of you that don't know, like me before I Googled it, a bump stock uses recoil to make a semi-automatic weapons function like an automatic one's. The Department of Justice officially classified these stocks as turning weapons into machine guns, and thus they are now subject to the same legal limitations as machine guns, effectively banning them from public use. And
you left out the part where they first didn't decide that they were turning them into machine guns.
Well, this is somebody on a non-gun place trying to describe it to these people, their audience. And then it has about a zillion of these gay like hashtags in there. So I'm guessing because of the rainbow up here and all this is like a gay channel, and they're obviously not gunners, and they're all about they're championing it. It seems they've got 99 likes on a channel of 1,000 viewers. So that's pretty decent ratio. So there's a
question about
the people.
If somebody had one and actually said, "Okay, I want to register it," could they submit a tax stamp on it?
No, because it's a machine gun, and after 1986, the Gun Owners Protection Act.
It was manufactured after '86. Okay,
exactly. So if you're a law enforcement agency, sure, you can get a letter and have all the bump stocks you want. But wait,
why would they want one?
Law enforcement doesn't want them because they're pointless and they're just for recreational fun. They're not for effective use.
I have a question about people griping about the NRA. Do people really think the NRA has the power or has the fortitude, or what would be the word? Why are people not mad at themselves instead of being mad at the NRA? Why would you rely on the NRA? That's my question, really.
Well, you shouldn't put everything into the NRA, but you should spread it around, and as well as be mad at yourself, be mad at your friends, and by mad I mean unhappy with, as well as the various organizations that are supposed to be representing us. Some of those can't do anything because of their charter, because they tend to go after either legislative actions or have to wait till something happens, and then they can file a lawsuit.
The way I look at the way I look at the NRA is the same way I look at the National Home Builders Association. I'm a builder, so I'm a member of it because I'm expected to be as a part of the industry, right? But I don't expect them. I don't think they've ever actually done anything for me. And I think it's the same with the NRA. I'm a member of the NRA just because it's another industry, right? Membership, right? Because I have these certifications I want to maintain, right? But I don't expect them. If I want anything done, I expect that I have to do something, and if I don't do it, then this kind of thing's going to happen.
Well, that's awesome, but not everybody has got the opinion that they have to take care of everything themselves, so they put money into an organization to take care of things for them, and then others don't expect an organization who suggests that they're there to champion rights. Depending on your perception of all this, they threw rights under the bus. So if you're, I don't disagree with you. Everyone should feel, should have the go-to-edness or whatever the word is to do everything themselves. But plenty of people, put faith in organizations to represent us, or fund things that can do things that they can't. And while they might not agree with every decision, they certainly don't expect an organization of that weight and clout and influence to work against us.
Right, and that's where. I've said it before, like, for me, I was like that. I was a member for years of the NRA and didn't do anything above and beyond give them a little bit of money every year. And until, I came around this community and got on Gun Channels and met all these people, that I realized, like, wow, I should be doing more. And I should be thinking about this more. I should be concerned about this more. And that's by no fault of anybody that they're not an activist or whatever. But you know, sometimes it takes somebody stumbling upon a show like this or something, or watching somebody else's show to make them think about it a different way. And that's what's important about what we do. I think that's why it's important that we have lots and lots of different people doing videos, because, you know, it's different flavors for different folks, right? They stumble upon a video that they like, and at the end of it, they say, hey, check out Gun Channels, or check out our live stream. And we're talking about guns and the Second Amendment. And next thing you know, you've maybe opened up somebody's mind a little bit. It's what happened to me.
The reason I brought that up was because I always had this desire to create something like some organization where we had these political, like political hitmen, like super lobbyists, you know, that we could raise money and pay directly, because I'm starting to think that there's so much insider politics going on all the time that the general public, you know, unless there is a massive uprising like in France, that you can't get anything done. And it would be cool to have somebody that you're actually paying to say, okay, super lobbyist, this is your job this week. Go talk to this guy, and tell them.
Like the lobbyists that took McDonald versus Chicago and got Illinois constitutional, or got Illinois CCW, or Heller and took.
No, I'm talking about one that works for us directly. Well,
those do work for us directly. Second Amendment Foundation and gun owners both have lobbyists, and that's what they do. And I don't know what you want, another one.
I'm just saying, I feel like my money it would be better spent. I don't know. I'm asking a question. How better can we spend it?
The Second Amendment Foundation is literally exactly what you asked for, and they've done it with McDonald
Foundation.
Huh?
I'm a member of all of the Gun Owners Association, NRA, all that.
You asked if there was a way to do that, and I suggested there is. I mean, I don't know.
Well, I'm being facetious to a certain point, because all of those organizations are now, you know, asking, how did this happen? You know, that's why I'm asking.
Okay, so you say your first question was, how come people are going to expect the NRA to do everything for us? And now I think you just said, how can this have happened with all these organizations working for us? In other words, how did this happen with the organizations supposed to be doing it for us? We can't have it both ways. Let's move on. We're trying to look at the Instagram post to see, again, how we can actually do something and not shake our fists at the sky at what happened in the past. So when we look at, I was looking earlier this morning. I was a little frustrated yesterday, so I didn't want to get in on it yesterday and watch how it proceeded. Like I said, this is, I think, my 12th or 15th time through this type of situation. And I saw some concern that the sports shooters, the competition shooters, are silent. So I don't know if you know Cheyenne Dalton, a large channel, young girl who's a competitive shooter, 78,000 followers, so significantly larger than my channel. And she's not typically political, but she posted yesterday, I think, a very useful, you don't think memes are the answer? Well, I'm sorry that you didn't want to voice that, but I think memes are definitely an untapped resource. But again, as I'm trying to say here, that I think this was done very creatively in a way that isn't in your face, that probably reaches, I know it reaches whatever, I just said 74,000 people that I'll never reach. And she's a competitive shooter, and a young kid and a female. So she's reaching audiences that are not typically going to talk about bump stocks and stuff. So when people say that the competitive shooters do nothing, she's got 6,000 something posts or 6,000 something hits on this in 17 hours and 242 comments. So congratulations to her and the other competitive shooters that I don't follow that are potentially talking about this too and bringing this awareness to the, yeah, no shit, right, Dano? What the fuck? So thanks to the people that are out there putting effort in. I don't know what this is.
Something I just want to throw out there, just because my mind just happened to rumble on it, is as gun owners, I think it's maybe even more important than the issues we're fighting for, that we be willing to overlook some of the what I call minor differences between us, whether it's me as a concealed carry holder and practicing for that versus a competition guy who puts in lots of money and travels and loves to do that, versus the hunting guy who loves to do that, versus the guy that just likes plinking once in a while, maybe once a year, whatever, versus the woman that just simply has a firearm at home for protection and doesn't practice, but she has that right to do that. And probably categories I'm not thinking about that we that unless we come together and can kind of like put aside some of our, I call minor differences, it's going to be difficult for us to make headway. And I think I get a little bit discouraged when I see some of us occasionally do that behavior, because I think it collectively hurts us.
Well, it certainly hasn't succeeded, and we've definitely done that same pattern talking about every single time, right? That it's happened.
No, I was not talking about that specifically. I was just talking about generally people that, if I can't get my way as I'll just insert a group as a concealed carry holder or as a hunter or whatever, then I'm out of here.
No, I agree with you. That's pretty much what I'm just saying. That's been the situation, and it hasn't succeeded. So I think it's obvious that.
I'm not sure how to change, and I'm not going to lie about the antis, but even gun owners, people who say that they're for freedom, for gun rights, to have that flexible mindset. I don't know how, because without that, we lose good support.
Well, this isn't the time to do it, but with Woods and with Smeggy and with others in the past, we've looked at things like the mindset, having conversations, that taking apart a conversation and dissecting the elements of it to more effectively have communication with people. Right now is a time to mobilize, not a time to educate and workshop. But I think that's the kind of skill that we should all strive to at least be aware that if we're weak on that, and potentially share methods or techniques in order to shortcut to some of the essence of those effective communication skills. You're right.
I just mentioned it because we're about to say charge. I don't want to be out there with a handful of my men when I had 50 men just a few minutes ago.
Let's not fight. I think that's something that's excellent to bring up. And I've seen this again. I'm coming at this from a perspective of seeing this for a long time and trying not to get frustrated and go, well, it's never worked before, so it can't work in the future. It can work, and it will work. We have more than enough interested people, motivated and willing, and we have resource to do it. So yeah, I think that let's keep going. So this one I don't understand. I don't understand this little thing. I don't know if this is a running gag or something, but
it's because he's bent over and getting.
Oh no, this is a meme of some like cartoon character that might have something, if you've watched this cartoon, or some significance. But
SpongeBob SquarePants, but it's. I just wonder if he's like bending over because he just got it again.
No, he's supposed to be walking around like he's mentally damaged or whatever. Doesn't matter. All I'm saying is that this is one that I don't get, but it's still an effort out there, right?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
I don't know the channel.
Yeah. As a minimum, people read the title.
Well, but anyway, so if you throw a frog in a pot of boiling water, it'll jump out. If you put a frog into a pot of cold water and slowly turn up the heat, it'll boil to death. Our Second Amendment is slowly being eroded away. Bump stocks are stupid. I don't own one and never will. But if they're willing to ban something as simple as an inanimate plastic object, what's next? I am 100% for the Second Amendment, including accessories, attachment, add-ons, and modifications. So again, 500 something people, 147,000 or 147 likes on it, which is a fifth of it's 20% of the thing. That's awesome. And again, it's something that I don't understand, but it's obviously getting through to 147 people, and out of his 500, and it's become one of the top posts in this hashtag. So that effort of someone with 500 people could have easily said, what am I going to do? How am I going to change something? Well, 147 people are aware of something about this now. And if 3 of them, never thought about this before and are now questioning it, that's 3 more people in the world that are aware of it. And that's how I think that's one of the most effective things we have as a community for that one-on-one changes of mind. I don't know. Go ahead.
Sorry. It bothers me a little bit when I hear not everybody, but so many people say about bump stocks, they'll say, well, I don't have one, and I think they're stupid. I would never get one. Like, I feel like it helps dismiss our point a lot. I think saying that phrase makes everybody say a little more lackadaisical about the whole situation. Like, I'd rather people just say they exist, they should exist, It's okay that they exist. And, you know, I think they're cool. I don't have one, but I would. I think they're cool. If I had the money, I'd have bought one. And I think they're fun. They look like a lot of fun. But I don't like the fact that so many people automatically right off the bat just say, well, I think they're stupid and I would never buy one. Well, then why would you expect anybody to fight for the right to have them, right?
Good point. Oops. So that's that one. I don't know what that one's about. This one is about, like, I guess, Revolutionary War or whatever. This is just the beginning. Shall not be infringed. 247. That got across to some people. We got the funny ones. Now we have a bump stock. Getting out to 700 people. And that's the kind of stuff, again, that can travel, can be shared on other platforms and stuff. So those are the ones that they show up as most, whatever, the top ones, the most trending, I guess, probably. Then we get into the most recent ones. There's Tony's. I don't really see anybody up in arms. We'll let this one get by us. Oh, we let this one get by us. And then, I don't know, you just picked a random picture, I guess, Tony? Or is there some significance to this one?
Oh, no, I was just reading, you know, trying to read all the articles, and it just occurred to me that I didn't really see anybody up in arms. I mean, I know the immediate gun community's up in arms. We're up in arms, but, you know, I don't see that many people.
Right on.
I think you know I'm an older guy. For the I don't have my camera on, so people can't necessarily see I'm an older guy. But for younger generations, memes are a much more better communication tool for when we older folk don't necessarily speak the lingo that younger people are used to communicating in, nor necessarily using their tools. This is one way that they communicate amongst each other for just fun as well as for serious things.
The mistake I made was making an internal comment and then leaving before I had a chance to explain myself. But I had a call for work. But I wasn't saying that memes were a bad idea. They've just been around for a long time, and you just, how do you get those, how do you get those memes out in front of people who are used to watching PewDiePie, who's the reviewer of memes? I'm an old guy too, but I think I keep up pretty well with the millennial because I have 2 or 3 as kids.
Give so as an example, like putting it on platforms that they use that we use either a little or don't use at all, like Reddit. Go to the platforms where they tend to like, and that's where that's fertile ground for planting those seeds.
There's also something to the trend function or the awareness of trending, and the what do you call them, the political strategists, the marketers, the people that are got their finger on the pulse of stuff. These are indications of people's mindset, indication of the the thoughts out there. So by contributing in any way, it's being seen, it's recorded, and it's creating influence. So we got one here that's sort of NFA, machine gun ban, bump stock ban, semi-auto ban, and then the NRA saying, now this time we really mean it. So this one, these are just in order of recent. So this is a channel with 100 viewers, and 4 people have seen that one. Still worth it. It's in the list here, and it's catchy. It's a cartoon, so people are going to see that one. I don't know if you saw this one. I turned the volume down before because he's shooting in it, but this guy, kind of what Midnight was saying, I don't know a bump stock. I wouldn't buy one. I wouldn't put one on any of my rifles. That being said, F you. And he basically just gets out there and bump fires, not from a pocket or anything, just plain old bump fires. And the AR-15s are super easy to bump fire. The weight of them and the way that they operate with their, basically an aluminum tube with a little counterweight in the middle of it. It's real simple to balance that thing. So he just gets out and shoots it a bit.
Can I make a comment on that right there, G-Webs?
This? Yeah.
Yeah, because I know Midnight, is it Midnight? What's your name? Midnight what?
Yeah.
We call him Pancake.
Oh, Pancake. Well, I mean, I was one of those that when bump stocks first came out said they were silly and goofy. And, I think because I've always been around I have several friends that are dealers, licensed dealers, and I go to these events and I've shot a bunch of machine guns. I guess I took for granted that, I guess some people don't have, I guess because I had those opportunities, I saw bump stocks as silly and just pieces of junk, right? Well, I mean, I guess for those people who didn't have those opportunities, maybe it gave them the opportunity to pretend they were shooting a machine gun. But there's nothing wrong with us being honest in the, I'm not going to lie just for a cause. I'm not going to say that I love bump stocks when I don't. But what I will do is say, just like the guy in that meme or in his description, I don't like bump stocks, but I don't think they should be banned. And that you can't really ask people to be dishonest. And you know what I mean? I've heard, and I get this all the time.
People to be dishonest, because most of the people I've spoken to have no desire to have a bump stock, nor would want one in the future. But it's not about the bump stock. It's about the erosion of the options we have to enjoy firearms as we do. That's
right. But I took a lot of heat in the beginning on this thing from the same people, and when I heard Midnight saying it, I don't think we should speak that way. Well, you're not a speech, we can't start to try to control people's speech. We just have to be active in how to counter these things, right?
No, and I don't think, and I'm a big proponent of being honest too, and I'm not saying that people should not say I'm not saying that people should be dishonest, but I'm saying that the world is full of strategies, and the world is full of the way that it's not what you say, it's how you say it kind of thing too. And that's all I'm saying is I think you have to you got to be careful which fire you add fuel to. I think that's it's kind of touchy.
Or you can feel that you don't need to be politically correct when you say watch what you say. Some people aren't into that game, So I mean, look at it. Look, there's several ways to look at it. If someone's adamantly against a bump stock, but they're adamantly opposed to banning them, what's more effective, that or someone saying, "Oh, I love bump stocks. I sleep with them. I don't want them banned." To me, they both have their place.
Oh, I agree. I think that can be. I think that's an interesting way to look at it too. It's like, well, these guys don't even like them, but they want them saved, so it must be really important. My thing is, you look at anti-gunners or whatever you want to call them. The last thing we want to do is, for me, the last thing I want to do is add any more ammunition to their anti-gun arsenal, right? And I don't want people to look at it and be like, look, these guys don't even give a shit about them. These guys don't care about them. Let's just, let's go after them. Nobody's going to stop us now, and then Trump says the stuff that he says. Well, we'll look into them, and it adds a little bit more, adds one more log to the fire, and they're like, ooh, yeah, Trump's on our side too. I just, you don't want to. I hate to see them get any more aggression, or any more. I don't know how to say it. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I don't want them to be any more positive in their approach than they already are.
I think we just have to make sure our actions, follow what we really want to happen. We shouldn't have to watch what we say necessarily. We should just make sure our actions are the proper actions. Because actions are what count. What we do is what counts.
I guess I view, and this is getting slightly off topic, but it is related. I view bump stocks as very much similar as I might view fireworks or donuts or ice cream. They're not they are potentially dangerous. They are for fun, but they should also be for the public's enjoyment and be allowed to use them for that purpose.
I would agree.
I agree. Yeah, you could take a whole bunch of fireworks, take them all apart, and turn them into a bomb. But they exist.
There's nothing wrong with enjoying fireworks. There's nothing wrong with the bump stock. There's nothing wrong with having a couple of donuts. Big bowl of
Donuts.
ice cream.
Especially if they have sprinkles on it.
So we've got some new people joining. I'm going to go through and play host here and introduce everybody that's been jumping in, and we'll get back on topic again. We got Artisan Tony jumping in from Chattanooga. Thanks for joining.
Hey.
Got Clover jumping in from Texas. Thanks for jumping in.
Hey, you bet.
Gary's been with us since the beginning from Kansas. Thanks, Gary.
Thank you for the invite.
Dano jumped in from Illinois. Was at the Gun Rights Policy Conference with me this year in September. Thanks for joining.
Thank you for the invite, as well as Smeg was there, and was it Roll Call that was also there?
Yep. And enough, Patrick was there as well with the van.
Yes. And of course, let's not forget Nicole.
Well, yeah, there was lots and lots of pro-gun people there. Then we had Midnight, who didn't want to show up. He couldn't be bothered, but he showed up for this chat. Thanks for joining.
Absolutely. Honored to be here.
Woods jumping in you're in Pennsylvania, sorry. Pancake is out in Pennsylvania. We got Woods jumping in from the Pacific Northwest, also called Washington, the state. Thanks for joining.
Hey, thanks for the invite, man.
We were going to chat a little bit today. This got overturned or whatever with this. And then we got Slim jumping in. Where you at, Slim?
PA, Pennsylvania.
Oh, also Pennsylvania. So never eat in East Pennsylvania, just in case. All right. So anyway, thanks guys for jumping in. We're here not to shake our fist at this guy, but we're here to hopefully use these channels of communication that we create throughout the year, having fun, talking about guns and mobilizing them when necessary. We're here to mobilize. We're here to talk about options and options that we can take. We started out the show talking about two of the large organizations that put effort into that kind of tools for us. Gun Owners for America is no compromise gun lobby. Been around since 1975, and they have a portion of their website. If you just go to gunowners.org, they're right on the main page. They have a link to this issue. Yesterday, they put up an article, and we went through and looked at that. There are links there that you can contribute to their efforts financially. We also went over to the Firearms Policy Coalition and looked at their Instagram, and they have a couple of posts talking about legislation that's already in the works starting yesterday that was prepared when they started talking about this earlier in the year. The FPC has been preparing stuff, and it all went filed yesterday. So we've been taking a look at the actions that are taking place from those organizations, and then we started talking about how to effectively mobilize. And then I started taking a look at some of these memes that are going on. In other words, posts on the platforms that offer information and awareness in a quick glance. So a meme is I don't know what the definition of it is, but basically an image or a picture, a cartoon, or a juxtaposition of pictures and stuff with some words that make you think, the same way that editorial cartoons would have done in the old days in the paper, so that someone who doesn't have the time or the inclination to read about an issue can get the gist of a position from the various angles. And we've been talking a bit about the effectiveness of the various types of efforts, and then whatever. So you got a bunch of new people jumping in. I'll just keep scrolling through some of these memes on Instagram, and you guys take the conversation. A couple of you guys just jumped in. How do we solve this? Let's fix this before Christmas.
The interesting thing I saw was I heard somebody say the official wording of it doesn't actually make sense when it is applied to a bump stock. And somebody said that hopefully, obviously not counting on it, but hopefully that maybe once it gets in front of a judge, people are going to be like, well, wait a minute. Because I think it's worded, was it worded like something about changing the amount of rounds fired per trigger pull or something like that? I forget how it's actually worded.
No, it's not. It has to do with changing the definition, and I read all 157 pages of the final ruling. Has to do with changing the rule change or the definition change, which is the root of the issue here. or the root of what they're trying to do. They want to change it from basically one function of the trigger equals one round fired, right? For, semi-auto. In other words, one function of the trigger and you get continuous fire. Or two functions of the trigger is two shots. You see where I'm going with that. They want to change that from function basically to pull of the trigger. So in other words, echo triggers, according to the final ruling and what I read, echo triggers are safe. Two functions. You pull, it fires. You let go, it fires. Your finger has moved twice. You fired twice. The issue that they seem to be pushing in the final ruling is that because of bump stock, you lay your finger across the little ledge and your finger doesn't actually move at all. It has nothing to do with your finger. You pull the forend, back, whatever, and I guess you do pull, I guess one time, kind of, sort of, in a way, but really there's no finger movement. Your finger kind of stays still. So that's kind of and you're right in that it is weird, but that's where they're wanting to redefine it. So in the sense of this is a slippery slope and this leads to them banning this or banning that or banning something else, in the sense of executive overreach, yes. I see that. In the sense of them changing this particular definition and it leading to other things, they've been very specific, and we can credit the outcry and the pouring of pouring in of comments during the couple of comments period. We can credit ourselves and those that replied and commented probably with the specificity that I'm seeing in this ruling. And I'm not saying I agree with the ruling. I'm just giving you an analysis of said ruling.
Oh, yeah, no, I understand that.
But they, it went from back this time last year to, oh, it's this big vague thing. And even I was saying that. It's like, oh my God, you can't just say, how do we deal with rate of fire? How do we deal with, the mechanical, I guess, aspects? Yeah, the mechanical aspects of it, that sort of thing. And this could apply to even semi-automatic receivers could be considered as increasing the rate of fire and, all of this other stuff. Ghost has made the argument high capacity magazines could do that, or what we would call standard capacity magazines. But I guess if you're talking in a sense of a drum magazine or something like that, it could be either way. Could obviously, with the lack of reload, increase the rate of fire. They specifically have addressed rate of fire in the final ruling. They said we're not even beginning to go down that rabbit hole in attempt. This is about changing one function of the trigger to one pull of the trigger. So, meaning finger movement, meaning the whole goofy Mikulacek memes, right? Of Mikulacek's got to cut off his fingers. No.
Yeah.
He's moving his finger. So as far as the ATF is concerned and said in this ruling, that's all cool. If you're able to move your finger that fast, good deal. But you're not gonna utilize a device that assists you without having to move your finger. Is basically what they're breaking down. So the way, I haven't seen the GOA lawsuit. I would really love to see the text of their lawsuit, because they're going to have to be careful the way I'm reading this ruling. They're going to have to be really careful how they fight this. There are holes in it that I can see, and a few inconsistencies. There's also the danger, like I said, of usurping the legislative process and several other ways to attack this. I hope that people don't file suits the wrong way, because that could be ill-fated when you're getting into the courts. We talk about this all the time. The language matters. Words matter when you're talking about lawsuits, even more so, and understanding what you're suing. Okay, understanding this final ruling enough to be able to go through and nitpick all the little things. And there's lawyers and people out there far smarter than I that can do it. So if I'm seeing little bitty things, there's probably even more there that they can bring suit with. And I hope that they're doing that. And eventually I hope that we can actually, or I can anyway, actually see the text of the lawsuit.
And that's what I heard. I heard that there was a couple different things in it that were kind of little holes that might be able to be pried at. But yeah, I know.
Can I make an observation? Oh, I'm sorry, Slim. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Just
Okay.
sitting here and listening to Clover Tack talk made me wonder if they haven't. It's almost like we're all kind of nerdy about this stuff, right? We love to read the text and get deep into the meaning. Why don't we just go back up to another limb on the tree and cut the whole thing off? Why are we? You see what I mean? Now we're getting down to if, ands, or buts in the law when we should have just gone back, to a bigger limb, and chop that whole thing off.
Well, the limb is going back to 1933. Stop there.
Right. But are you going to be able to craft a lawsuit in such a way that you can get that through the Supreme Court?
I guess we'll just have to rely on our Gun Owners of Association or America Gun Owners, and Second Amendment Foundation, and
that's not our only option either. So
no, I'm saying on those particular lawsuits that he was talking about that have been filed.
Right.
Yeah.
Getting into the minutia, though, of the technicalities of how they defined or how they infringed, and the nuance there is, again, what I consider to be the ambush. That's what they want us when I'm going to keep using the analogy of a punching bag. They come along, the people that want to see no guns, and they punch the punching bag, and then they depend on gravity and all the forces of friction to stop that punching bag from swinging back like anything on a fulcrum and hitting them. They know that that energy is going to be lost, and they're never going to get an equal resistance to what they've put out there. And when we start getting into the nuance and the specificities too much, I mean, we have to be aware of it. Obviously, we can't be ignorant of it. But if we focus too much on the specifics, then we've got our heads down in that valley when they're shooting at us from up above, and we're in that ambush. So I think another way to look at it is, if he has the ability to do anything in this nature, it's exactly what Obama tried to do with his 23 executive actions, and it's exactly what got the entire community to rally behind each other in a way that not only stopped his 23 executive actions, made him change to a strategy of secrecy and putting things through quietly on Friday afternoons, very similar to this that was done quietly on a Tuesday, day week before Christmas. And what we're looking at here is, like this meme here says, we're looking at a bigger infringement than anything Obama ever accomplished. So this is one that we should see. It would be ideal if we saw resistance like we did in 13. But anyway, if we look at the specifics of it, we worry about the technical nuance of it, what we really should be concentrating on, I think, or at least another strategy to think about, is the concept that the president is doing this through the executive branch solely, and without the influence or the authorization or what should be the responsibility of the legislative branch. So
yes,
we're looking at the specifics, which we have to be aware of, but we should also be slapping the executive branch on the hand for assuming that they have this authority, which they do not, under the Constitution, have any authority here.
yes.
But when I see memes like this, G-Webs, I don't see someone fighting for gun rights. I see a never Trumper just trying to poke the bear.
That's too bad, Tony. You're not the only human being. There's 360 million of us in this country alone, and everyone interprets everything their own unique way.
Let me ask you, what does that?
But this is valid.
I'm asking you, what does it serve to compare Trump to Obama? I mean, that's like saying Mao fed the children,
Hardly. It's like
he fed the children while they were working slave labor,
No, I don't know.
Might wake somebody up.
Valid because Obama in 2012 and 13, in reaction to what happened in December of 2012, proposed 23 executive actions, taking the authority to change law into the executive branch without the influence or the authority of the legislative branch. That's what this is referring to. And the fact that people got motivated to the point where we stopped his ambition. We stopped the ambition of all the other people on that had that point of view or that intent, And we also empowered a community that was basically, you remember, you were there. Our community was growing at some rate, and it went to an exponential rate during that resistance to the 23 executive actions. So this is a significant point in history that we rallied together as a community and effectively stopped something that was tyrannical. And this is comparing that to what just happened yesterday, which was exactly, if not more tyrannical, but has gone at this point unmatched. And I say unmatched because it happened yesterday because of what you brought up a little while ago, that we have not been efforting on this since, what was it, June, when they put through the comment period? All we did is comment. We did not consistently demand inaction since then. And that's the difference here. And I think that's what this meme is trying to do, at least for me, from my impression of it. And I want to be open to the fact that there's 360 million people that could potentially see this, that have influence in this country. But more importantly, however many people watch this gun guy's internet thing, the 52,000 people that watch this political channel, it looks like, that's even better. This isn't a gun thing. This is a political thing. So this is 52,000 people that see this and interpret it in 52,000 ways. Is that bad, or is it better to not say anything?
I was just telling you how I interpreted it. That's all.
Tony, if you're going to get offended and consider everything a challenge, and then it's not effective communication. If you put something out there and I answer it, you have to acknowledge that that's an answer to your question. Please.
I was merely stating that I was giving you my interpretation of the meme. That's all.
We don't have the most effective communication, and that's one of the reasons I effort to do these things live, because if we want to only project or only publish our perfection, then we're not doing ourselves or anyone else a service. I want to have organic, real conversations like this, and we are eventually going to prevail, right? So I appreciate you sticking with me here, and we will eventually continue to figure out how to work together, and hopefully that'll help me and you to work with other people better, and people that view this and understand all this will.
All I was saying, G-Webs, was that instead of comparing two presidents, that's really not the issue. You know, figure out a better way, because there are a lot of people like me who are Trump supporters who will look at that meme and look at it as a stab, a political stab, not part of the solution. You see, that's my only point. I was just making a comment that I think there are better ways to do what you're saying we should be doing.
Well, but I think too that because even through this, and it just happened, but again, I took the time, I read all 157 pages. I've got a decent little grasp of what all it's saying. And, you know, I've even been demonized by some people, not because I'm agreeing with the stupid thing, but just because there's people out there saying things that, according to the text in that ruling, is just not factually correct. It doesn't say, you know, X, Y, and Z. It doesn't say they're getting rid of echo triggers. It doesn't say that this extends to rate increasing devices. There's all of this stuff that it in fact, it specifically says the opposite in there. And, you know, we have to be able to acknowledge everything. But with that said, there's the vast majority of people are not going to read the thing. They're just not going to do it. And then out of that vast majority, even if they were to read it, are they going to be able to comprehend or understand or even form some type of reasonable opinion? Or even if they read it, are they going to project what they want to understand out of it? Because that's a possibility too. So my point with saying all that is that with some of the memes and different things that are kind of over the top a little bit, you know, I don't know that that's not necessary in a way. I don't think it's necessary to win an argument. I don't think it's necessary to win a fight, but I don't know that it's altogether counterproductive, because I think that it can have that shock factor enough that it can at least bring awareness. And then maybe people can be, once they're woke and they're aware, they can be educated to the more subtleties of what we need to take care of. Because I agree with what Tony said earlier about, you know, taking this down at the trunk, you know, taking the limb down at the trunk or whatever. You know, and that's sort of the issue with this. I mean, it needs to be gone about, I think, as an overreach. because that's how we deal with it at the trunk. Is we say, hey, you can't overreach. It doesn't matter what you're overreaching on, whether it's this or abortion or whatever the case may be. You don't overreach from the executive branch, period. And
this
that
could
plays
very
to a
easily
lot
be
of
OSHA or the EPA or the IRS.
it
or
plays
somebody
exactly.
else.
It plays to a larger issue, and then not only do we win that fight, but then we've got precedent on our side for future things that may have nothing to do with the Second Amendment that we, as a country need to deal with and get rid of or take care of. But
let me ask you this, Clover Tank. Do you think that there is some sort of effort to exclude binary triggers and echo triggers, so that if this fails, that could be another effort, a singular effort, a separate effort?
I don't think it is, because I don't think that they don't have any public push or scary boogeyman thing like the bump stock, the whole Vegas thing, and we don't even know if it's factually correct that those were used. We know that we pretty much know they were present, but we don't know that they were used. So just the fact that that's out there, and that's guilt by association in a way, right? Guilt by association.
No, I'm just saying
they were able to make it a boogeyman.
Yeah, I'm just saying it might be attacked from those that are supporting this, that they don't want to include them, so that they're not, down the road.
So. Yeah, I don't think so, because the way that I read it and the way that it's worded, it addresses that, and it says that, this is not about that type of device requires 2 pulls of the trigger to fire twice. So while it makes it fire faster, that's not the issue. Again, they go into the whole, what am I thinking? Rate of fire thing. They go into that, and they're like, that's not the issue here. The issue is not trying to regulate or determine a baseline for rate of fire. That's not the issue. It has to do with the physical movement of the finger in a trigger. Oh.
So in other words, it's referring to the passive action of pulling the trigger rather than the active action of pulling the trigger.
Right. The physical, biophysical, I guess you could call it, pulling of the trigger, meaning with your finger or with an appendage, a human, whatever appendage, as opposed to utilizing a device that sets it into a automatic motion.
It requires an action for it to fire versus a bump stock, which requires inaction for it to keep firing.
That's so wrong. I mean, that's not technically accurate. Your hand has to be there and it has to be in control.
Well, yeah, but I guess they're trying to nail it down to just the finger, the trigger finger itself. I don't know, but
I mean, it also takes a certain amount of pressure against your shoulder, or non-pressure. There is more thought involved than just
right. It's a skill. It's a technique. Not the device. The device itself cannot do. If you put a machine gun on the table and shove a dowel rod in there, it'll fire. Right. Bump stock. So it's ridiculous to suggest whatever their definition is that it's unique to that.
Yeah, but I think the bigger issue is they don't have the power to change the language of legislation. That's an overreach.
Correct. And that's the kind of stuff that we not only want to prevent here, but we want to prevent that in government, period.
Absolutely. But they did, I will say this, and again, I know that somebody just jumps in and gets sound bites, and it's going to sound like I'm all anti-gun and pro-bump stock. I mean, anti-bump stock or whatever here. But those comments, they parsed the crap out of those comments. Somebody come back and they said, oh, no, they're just talking about, they talk to people in the industry and got, that's where they come up. No. It's got percentages. It shows the number of comments that raise this question or ask this or ask that, and they address every single one of those. So you've got, if you wrote in and you commented and you want to know their reply to that particular issue, go read it. It's there. And on a lot of them, it's like, hey, it's not about that. That's not what we're trying to do here. So they're, by admission, they're admitting that they're not, they're not trying to be vague. They're not trying to go after other things. And I think that's kind of a huge thing in this too, that they're kind of saying the buck stops here in a way with a lot of this. So I'm not saying we give up bump stocks. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying it doesn't look like the boogeyman ruling that it's quite made out to be.
I think a lot of that's probably because if you remember last time this came up, the wording was fire rate increasing device, and I guess that's a lot of people kind of ran with that.
Yep.
So,
yeah, and to our credit, like I said, to our credit, kudos and applause for everybody that has commented, because the ATF has parsed that and taken all that in consideration and revamped the, even though we don't like it, it has been revamped. It's not nearly as bad as it was, as bad as it is. It's not nearly as bad as it was. And we had an effect on that. So, that should be a rallying cry to G-Web's point that, imagine if we had way more that commented and responded. Would this even be an issue now? Because the first comment period, we did really well as far as the, against this versus the for this ruling. And then the second comment period came along, and like I said, the hashtag no more or whatever the crap it was, the Parkland, movement, Parkland Kids and the Parkland movement, they mobilized and they did really good at getting out the people that were for this, or at least signed on, right, with a form letter or whatever, that they were for this. So, the numbers were more skewed in our favor the first time. They were more evenly matched the second go around. And had it been skewed in our favor the second go around, had we had more turnout, more comments, everything else, would we have a different ruling? I don't know. I mean, hindsight's 20/20, but it's certainly possible. It's certainly possible. So to G-Web's credit, I mean, he's right. We've got to stay on these issues, and we've got to get as many people as possible involved, writing in, emailing in, whatever, calling and talking about these issues when they come up. We can't just, do it one time and then forget about it until until the boogeyman is dead and buried, so to speak. We can't rest on our laurels.
Right, and that becomes an issue that we don't have a goal, like remove the NFA, that we all stand behind, or at least enough of us stand behind, so that when we see hurdles like this, we don't say, oh, it's over. We see that as, that's one skirmish, and we're continuing on our march. This one I thought was interesting. I'll take a second to cleanse the palate a bit. We've seen a lot of stuff from our side, the individual rights, the freedom to own property, whatnot, and then we see this one, and this is the channel that I'm not familiar with. I don't remember how large it was, but it seems like it's mostly anti-Trump, or at least anti-establishment or something. It's not a gun thing at all. It's mostly Trump stuff, and something like 7,000 followers with 2,000 posts. And this one I think is interesting because, like, when I looked at their channel, their links and everything are called resist and vote.org. So they seem like they're anti-establishment. They post this image of a news article with a headline, Justice Department bans bump stocks, devices used in deadly Las Vegas shooting. And I will never utter those words unless I'm quoting a bullshit article like this, because that's such connotative language there, which is also not descriptive of the actual incident. But anyway, it's this headline with a picture of a bump stock on an AK-47, an AKM, on a bench at a gun shop, it looks like. And then his comment over here is simply about damn time, ... Bunch of hashtags, because he knows how to use Instagram. And what I think was interesting here is that he's somebody who's anti-establishment, but he's pro-establishment disarming individuals. So let's not get into the bad logic there. But let's look at some of his comments. So about damn time. So I can only assume 7,000 people that follow somebody who's anti-establishment are going to have a similar mindset, or perhaps maybe opposite, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, see some of the comments. What a dumb law to a criminal. It was the new saw NPR. This is the first thing I like coming out of this administration. At least that criminal won't have access to buying a bump stock at Walmart. Still can get them, LOL. All bump stocks will be destroyed or surrendered. Okay. Because criminals are totally going to follow the law, right? Question mark. It's not like the definition of a criminal is someone that doesn't follow the law. You're a effing tool if you think this fixes anything. then
because before they were a criminal, we just called them law abiders.
Mm-hmm.
But then they had a change of heart.
Then anyway, so I just thought it was interesting that even, you know, we see things, because I think most of us look at stuff from our side because we're interested in things and we follow stuff that's, you know, interesting to us. I don't take a look too often on the other side, but definitely not at the comments. So you went here, a small step, watch for gun lobby appeals. So that gives me some insight that that person thinks the gun lobby is behind everything, where we like to feel that the individuals, you know, are the gun lobby, quote unquote. So I think there's probably some angle there on educating the unaware of what the gun lobby actually is. I think our consistent push to encourage people to create their own content is an effort at changing that paradigm. But anyway, we won't have to spend too long on this one. So it was interesting to see an anti one come up, which is kind of illogical and also gets a conversation going in spite of their being in favor of this situation. And being anti-establishment, why would you think that they'd be in favor of such a usurpation of the constitutional system? Maybe they just hate the Constitution too. Somebody saying won't vote for Trump again. Anyway, I won't have to describe all of these, but I thought that one was interesting to see in Anti's comments.
That was something I was wondering about. We have a lot of supporters of Trump when he was elected. Wouldn't it behoove us to get all those folks to contact Trump and write him emails and say, what the F have you done here?
Yeah, we actually had that suggestion earlier. I think that's one of the best suggestions we've had from the discussion today. Again, the title of this is Let's Talk Options and Actions. You know, we've been talking about a lot of things because we want to keep the conversation going. I had emails out to all kinds of everybody I know in the industry. I won't single them out because they didn't show up, but all of you guys did, and I appreciate it. But we've been trying to keep the conversation going. Our big picture, though, is about specific actions we can take and what options we have here. And somebody brought up earlier, one of the new people over on Gun Channels brought up on the comments that letting Trump know specifically is an action that we can take right now. So I'm going to encourage everyone again to pause this. It's not that important. Take out a piece of paper and a pen, write a letter to Trump suggesting that this was a bad mistake and you don't like whatever it is you don't like about it, and then put that in an envelope and send it today, and then go back to this and click pause or play again and then listen to whatever we're saying.
Well, and I love the suggestions, G-Webs. I think it's more productive than, you know, I mean, what most people don't realize about Trump supporters is that they weren't necessarily Trump supporters, they were anti-Hillary. So we took the lesser of the two evils, and now we're dealing with what we've got.
That's an excellent point.
You know,
I think that's also. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say there's a lot of us that were true conservatives that knew he wasn't a true conservative, but we were hoping to get by. You know, it's just that kind of thing.
I think it's interesting because, like you said, you know, a lot of people voted for Trump because they didn't want to see Hillary in, because we knew that Hillary was going to attack.
And that was kind of the basis of my point earlier about the comparing the two, is that, you know, we're past that now. What can we do to move on, you know? But some people just want to dwell on that kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, look at it from a jump back for a minute, put yourself in a scenario and play and role play, and look at it from a standpoint of somebody who is not a hardened Second Amendment person, like pretty much everybody on the panel here and in the chat and probably listening. Look at somebody who, you know, may own they may own a gun for hunting. They may own a gun that's in the nightstand in case somebody breaks in their house or whatever. They may own that. You know, truth is, vast majority of people in this country don't own firearms. And then look at the myriad of issues, social issues, economic issues, whatever, and look at some of the good things that have come about from Trump. So, you know, they're seeing the good, and from their perspective, while we're hyper focused on the whole bump stock and this whole issue, they're not so much, because it's like, well, you know, I don't even hardly own a gun, and you know, what is this bump stock anyway? And it's like, yeah, I like the way the economy's going, or the social programs are going, or whatever the case may be. So yeah, I mean, we've got to, I think, and we keep harping on this, but we've got to attack this from a point of overreach. If we expect to pull other people in and broaden the ranks to go against things like this.
This one's crazy. So this nothing to do with what you're saying. I just saw this one and then scrolled down. I don't know what Hillary for Queens is. I don't even want to look at it, but it's some picture of a thing here, right? And then I'm looking through, and then it just says it appears to be a 157-page regulation, and then a bunch of hashtags, right? Male feminist, I'm still with her. So it's somebody who's pro-Hillary, right? And then you look down through this, and it's a bunch of, basically, they're like talking about where this is, where they can be found and stuff. So people interested in it. And then this last one, I just think could be funny for all of us, right? Of course, the NRA getting involved. They don't want anyone who owns one. They don't want anyone who owns one are ready to be given amnesty about having to turn one in. So basically, someone over here, you know, Hillary, anti whatever you want to call that, is over here assuming that the NRA, you know, is the against it, and like, you know what I mean? And obviously, we all know the real deal. So it's interesting how the world is going to be aware of what they want to be aware of, right? And these people are going to be anti-NRA because they think the NRA stands for us and the industry or something, probably, and they think that who knows what they think. So we got a lot of education to do out there.
Well, with the NRA, you know, they created with Hughes, they created a very highly collectible, you know, rich man's game market with that. And I think that they've got a lot of people that probably send them money, probably support them and other things that, you know, are looking to protect investment. And I've said for a long time, even if you got rid of the even if you got rid of Hughes, you know, you've got a lull in the market for so long that you've still got collectability and other things going on. People that could afford, you know, a couple of grand or 1,500 or even 1,000 for, you know, a full auto nowadays, you know, are still not going to be able to afford, you know, the pre-86 25 grand real deal. So, you know, I think there's still a collectible market. And my point is, with the NRA, it wouldn't surprise me if there was elements there that were saying, you know, don't fight this for an amnesty, because potentially that could open up an issue with the Hughes Amendment, and we don't want that to be messed with. We want that to stay intact to protect our own investments.
Yeah, I can't let that. I know too many people with full autos that would be all in favor of no NFA. So it's a perception that's held, and it's difficult to challenge when you got to deal with perception. But I'll counter it every time I hear it.
Yeah, I know for a fact the NRA was for the ban, because the last gun show I was at, they had NRA booth, and the guy was trying to recruit people. And I finally said to the guy, I'm like, what has the NRA done lately? And he's like, oh, well, look at the show. And it was kind of funny because everybody paid to get in. But I said to him, like, you know, the NRA is for the bump stock ban. He's like, yes, they are. And if we voted on it today, I would vote to ban them. And I'm like, it's a chunk of plastic. You're trying to ban a chunk of plastic. When does it end? And the guy got all pissy and upset. And I'm like, you're missing the point here. When does it end?
Well, now we got dead air. So we've been going for a while. I don't know. Like I say, this is an effort to get some options for people to hear something that isn't just with the guy, hopefully, and to offer some options and some actions that can be taken. If he wants to throw something else in there, we don't have to keep it going forever.
One thing I would like to suggest, and whether we shut it down now or shut it down a little bit later, is just prior to that is if somebody can kind of do a summary of the possible actions that people have to take, so it's in one place rather than having to, scatter the whole discussion.
Yeah, like in the comments of the video, you mean?
Well, I mean, as far as a number of people have suggested different types of actions that an individual could possibly take. I think just a quick summary of some of those things so that people could go, oh, what was that thing? And they can go right to the end and say, oh, here it is. These are the 5-6 things the various people mentioned as an individual can do.
I like that idea. I'm going to go in and edit the video description right now so that it can be on the description of the video that you're watching over on the platform that hates your guns and could care less about this kind of thing because they're going to profit no matter what happens. But then that'll, of course, it'll be posted on Gunstreamer as soon as this is over. But I think that's a great idea. I think the best one I've heard today is this idea of writing the president right now, letting him know that this was a mistake and that as gun owners, we can't support it. And whatever else you want to put in there. Gary was great enough to post the address, which I'm going to repost in the description of the video here. It'll be there whenever you're watching this in the future.
And that's mail, writing the president in the mail?
I would suggest writing a letter envelope. Typically, that you call them, it's worth something. If you email them, it's worth something. Like, that indicates a certain amount of voters when you. The most.
What about how much time the president spends on his Twitter and Instagram? He seems to be on there a whole bunch. What about just at least commenting over there also, along with?
It's not going to hurt a thing.
Nothing. So can somebody throw the link to his Twitter and we'll put that in there? But I think it's a great idea. So while we're on this, doing this, I just closed the chat because I'm here editing it. Can you guys, let's summarize. Have there been any other ideas or any other suggestions that we haven't brought up with? Let's get back on focus. What can we do right now to do something today? Change this before Christmas. Save the world before the end of the year.
How about be real selective on the memes that you send out? Because we all repost stuff all the time.
Well, I don't know. I'm jumping into Tony's boat here. That sounds super scary. What do you mean be selective about the memes?
Yeah.
Ones that would be thought-provoking rather than just making fun of something, or like you had that one, the young lady. That was a great one.
I hear you. So I agree and I disagree. Here's why I agree, because you're right. I mean, we want to have the appropriate conversation or the appropriate communication with the appropriate audience. But I disagree because the nature of the Instagram, at least, and the other platforms to other degrees, is a picture at a time. Very few people go, oh, here's a picture. Now let me examine everything else this guy has ever done, right? So if I want to put something out there that hits a Hillary person, I might use a bunch of hashtags effectively to get into those feeds. And I might put something out there that effectively communicates to a Hillary person. Or if I want to speak to someone who's a Trump person, I might put a different image out and do it. So I just don't want to say don't do things, but tag them appropriately and do as much as I would go the other way. I'd say do as many memes as you possibly can. If you think it's interesting, repost it. I think now, above all else, is a time to utilize the skills that we hone during the rest of the year, playing with these platforms and entertaining ourselves and having fun. Now is the time to use those skills strategically. But my strategy would be the opposite. Let's put bump stocks on our Instagrams and let's repost the shit out of shit. Again, people aren't required to look at everything you've ever posted. Most people won't, and you might get something out in front of somebody that it gets in their stream, which is all that matters, or might get reposted by somebody that's outside of your reach.
I like the idea of going on to Twitter. That's a great idea.
And I think that if we go to Twitter and Instagram, we shouldn't be just all like, fuck you, Mr. President, like, you dick. Like, we should, like, try and make a logical argument. Because dude, if he actually does see something or something is brought to his attention, he's not going to bypass anything that's just instantly ripping it. He's going to bypass everything that's instantly ripping into him, right? And calling him names and all that. So make a logical, like, thought-out argument, right?
That's a good point. The important thing is for him to know that we do not support this action, and we will not support him any further if he continues to take action such as this.
And that's a good point is, everybody brings up the Trump 2020. That's the point you want to push is you don't want to sit there and bash him, but you just kind of want to let him understand the fact that if this is the process, the way he wants to go forward, that he's going to lose his base supporters.
And if the NRA has told him that Americans don't care about bump stocks, he needs to find out that he has been misled.
The GWebs, I just want to let you know, I put some additional contact info in the side chat, phone numbers, including TTY and TTD, as well as the email form page.
Got it. Yep, just posted those things.
I have a question about Trump and Twitter. We all pretty much agree that he is the one actually tweeting, right? He doesn't have some staffer.
Right.
That's a question, really. I guess you have to, if you look at the tweets, it does look like he's personally doing.
I think he's the one who's doing his tweets. Does he actually run that page and moderate that page? I highly doubt it.
I mean, the most he might have is somebody he dictates they enter, but it's not, and they advise. No.
But I'm sure an intern, if all of a sudden 10,000 people went and commented on his last Instagram post or whatever, hey, bump stocks, what you're doing is wrong, that might get an intern to be like, oh, hey, by the way, there's a whole bunch of activity on this last post. People are really upset about this. I'm sure something like that happens, So that's what I'm saying. And then maybe he'll actually take the time to go through, read the comments, stuff like that. And then I don't know if any of you guys donated to Donald Trump's campaign, but I did, and I get messages all the time on my cell phone because of that. It'll say, "This is from your president, da da da. This is our next fight. This is the next thing we're trying to do," and I'm able to respond to that. So so if any of you guys donated and you're on that phone message system with the president, you can respond to those and leave comments on what you think and stuff. So that's another way. And that might get to him if enough people are saying the same thing.
And that's the important thing, is being the vocal majority is what's important.
And I think Donald Trump does love this country. I really do. And I think it is totally possible that the NRA is like, oh, no, yeah, we don't care about bump stocks. Just, we care about AR-15s and this and that, but we don't care about bump stocks. So I can easily see Donald Trump just not even knowing, right? Like, he's 70-something years old. He's probably never even seen a bump stock in real life. He probably doesn't even really understand how they work. And the NRA is telling him, oh, no one cares about this. Give him that so we can keep our other stuff. He probably thinks he's doing us a favor. He probably thinks we're doing what he wants, or what we want. He probably genuinely believes that.
At least we can all put effort to make sure that it's clear that so that if that is the case, he's aware, right?
I think he knows. I just think he thought he could get by with it.
No, I don't think he knows at all, man. I think all he knows is what people are telling him.
He's an old school Kerry guy. I mean, he's not dumb. Okay, he didn't become president being an idiot. I really think he just thought. And I'm a Trump supporter. I just really thought he could get by with this one, without too much damage. I do think he's a calculating guy.
I think he said, hey, we're going to get another assault weapons ban or something. We got to do something. And let's give them bump stocks. I think that's the way it went down.
Yeah, I think it was a political bone. All this talk was going on about the blue wave, right, all year long. And the blue wave wasn't near the wave that we thought it was. But still, I mean, they got the House back. Normal for a midterm. Nothing really uncommon there, but I'm sure he's seen that, and he's been sort of involved with politics for some time, right? And you gotta know he's got advisors and other things, but I think he kind of seen some writing on the wall that, hey, this may be an issue coming up. The second half of my first term here, I'm going to have to be dealing with potentially with the Democratic House. What kind of bone can I throw,
I don't think. What did he get out of it though, Clover Tack?
We don't know yet. Is the deal? Yeah.
I would tend to agree with you because I don't think he's an idiot, but I don't know what
he didn't throw it for free. That's not Trump. We know he didn't. That's not the case.
Yeah.
I heard that there was plans for another assault weapon ban, to bring back the assault weapons ban and the 10-round mag ban, and I heard that there was plans, and that was all in the works to bring all that back.
Yeah. Well, there's
and
been
then
that
the NRA.
Ever since
the NRA went to Trump and said, "Hey, let's give them bump stocks. Like, let's just give them these things."
Well, I got news for you. At the first of the year, it's not going to matter what kind of bone Trump threw. And they've got 30 or 40 new Democrats in the House. They're going to go for something, but they have to get it past the Senate.
I thought that was the whole point behind the NRA's comments of like, "Oh, we're playing, chess and not checkers," and is like that. I thought that was the whole reason why they're like the NRA is giving them
they better
bump
fucking
stocks.
stop because they suck.
You think they're going to be happy with bump stock ban? No, that's not a bone. It's not much of a bone.
It's a bone, all right. Just not the kind of bone we're talking about.
I didn't mean that. I just meant it's not big enough a bone.
It certainly wasn't a compromise. Nothing was taken off the other side of the scale.
Yeah.
Well, and
that's
it hasn't.
That we're seeing, right? If no assault ban legislation is introduced because of this tragedy, no magazine, legislation is introduced. Like we don't see that necessarily because it didn't get up there.
We're also looking at this
for the bump stock ban either.
We're also everybody so far is talking about we haven't gotten anything back. Okay. Not as far as the Second Amendment, as far as firearm related, but that doesn't mean it wasn't, the bone or the deal or the trade wasn't made for something totally non-related.
Can you give me an example so I can better understand your flow?
Yeah, I'd like to know what it was.
The wall, immigration issues.
There's not going to be any funding for the wall.
What else we got? Well, that's why I added the whole immigration issue.
Yeah,
that's all kind of rolled into one.
The immigration.
You got look at from the NRA standpoint. Look at the Democrats are going to take over the House. Look at the whole Russia collusion, and then how Russia and the NRA are there's some semi sort of ties with all of that mess now. We don't know, and that's what I'm saying. Thinking that it's purely tied to trade, this legislation for other regulation or whatever as it pertains to firearms is short-sighted because they're not. Again, we're dealing with people that are not hardened Second Amendment people, and their minds are not working like that.
I'm just putting myself in the shoes of a liberal, and that's just not a very enticing deal. Hey, I'll give you bump stocks if you'll give me a wall. That's not an equal trade.
Well, I think what we're missing is that there's a lot of people that are upset over that tragedy and they want someone or something to blame, right? And
which tragedy are you talking about?
Vegas.
The one with the bump stock.
You all still think that? You think that's still in people's minds? I don't know.
I think it's in lawmakers' minds, and they want to use that as a little notation on their record, on their career, to say like, "Oh, I'm the one who, got these evil mass killing things off the street and stuff like that. Like, I'm the one who made this happen and pushed for it." And yeah, of course. So when it comes to lawmakers, hell yeah, I think they're still up about it.
Because
that's the whole reason it just got banned. If Vegas never would have happened, they wouldn't even be looking.
Until there's term limits, there'll always be a next election. They'll always need a reason for their home people to vote for them once again to extend their career in D.C. Until term limits are in place, that will continue to be a thing, and they'll continue to need a chit for the future election with their home voters.
It is kind of strange that you brought that up because, excuse me, I haven't really heard Democrats talking much about that particular tragedy, but that they still talk about the need for gun control. Has anybody else noticed that they really haven't? Yeah, I haven't.
Would politicians not need a chit to use in the future for the next election? Never.
I've heard them talk about gun control in general, but not that tragedy necessarily. And I read the articles every day. I mean, I'm a political junkie. I haven't seen it that much.
I'm having a hard time believing that he made a deal, to be honest with you, because the whole time he's been pretty much pissed off. I'm going to do whatever I want. All of a sudden now he's going to change.
Well, you know,
I think it's because people have his ear, like the NRA and stuff, like big. And if they have your ear and they're telling you, oh, this is what all the gun owners want, like, I don't know, which way are you gonna lean to or believe if you're not necessarily in the gun world? You know, I guarantee you, Trump's never fired a bump fire stock. You know, he probably doesn't even know how they actually work. You know.
Well, I've never fired one, but that doesn't change my opinion that outlawing them is wrong. Because I have this crazy ability called I can read. I can read the ATF regulations on what is a machine gun. I can read.
I think anyone who's fired a firearm can imagine what it feels like to. Everyone's kind of tried that, right? To bump your AK. So I think they kind of know what it is. Even I haven't fired one either, but I know what it is and I know how it works, and I can imagine how it feels. I don't think that's such a big thing.
Is there anything else we want to add to the list?
I think in our next discussion, when Congress is in session again, we will definitely have to put the red flag laws that on a national level that are going to be coming up for those who don't already have it in your state as probably a number one thing to discuss and what to do. But at this point, it's a little bit early but come January, I think that's got to be number one on the list, barring something new coming up on the radar.
So do we wait till January or do we start now? Because we didn't start early enough for this.
Well, but yeah, okay. Well, we want to have selective targets. We just don't want to randomly spray fire.
Well, I'm with you on that, but
I don't have names. I don't have contacts. Obviously we know there are people to support it, but who's leading the effort? That's where I want to put my energy into.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
For a palate cleanser, I'm going to jump over to the NRA's Instagram. I'll quit looking at Instagram now and leave it with the NRA's Instagram. So 1 million followers, 1/5 of their membership base, I guess. And they have 26,000 views on this post from yesterday. And they have turned off comments. And it's basically them saying bye to Yeti and that they'd rather have this other kind of cooler company. I don't know if you guys remember the Yeti incident of last year around this time. Yeah. And I think I didn't realize, but there's been, as we've been scrolling through a lot of the Instagram stuff, a lot of it was buy a Cordova cooler made out of recycled bump stocks. And I think that's a pretty clever one, considering now I see that was their post yesterday. So in the wake of all of this, the largest gun owners' rights group, well, they weren't quite silent. They just talked about how they replaced their cooler company.
I got a question in regards to what you're kind of talking about. Is did Yeti do something similar to Levi Strauss or
no?
Or
no,
something?
the whole Yeti thing was a contractual obligation issue, and it actually it actually spanned across multiple organizations, not just the NRA. The NRA utilized that, however, to their advantage, and demonized Yeti to the point that people that don't read fine print and actually research the situation, demonized, went along with it and demonized Yeti. Regardless of how you feel about Yeti, about it overpriced and plenty of other alternatives like the Ozark at Walmart being just as good and blah, 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 that's kind of not the point. The point was it wasn't a Second Amendment related move at all. It just come at a really bad time. The timing and all was bad. The timing as far as the public release of it was bad. But if you go back to the private communications and stuff like that, it was going on long before that call to, whatever, separate with the NRA, blah, blah, blah. All of that was in play long before then.
So just like we wanted to write letters to the president, should we be writing letters to NRA for for kind of whatever we think their involvement is, and say that we're not going to
corporations to either support or not support, whether it be Yeti or whether it be Levi Strauss or whether it be Starbucks or whether it be somebody else.
Well, if you start getting into, you start parsing, this is my problem with companies, and you're dealing with large companies, and you're dealing with boards of directors, and you're dealing with employees with the companies, and you're dealing with all these other things that have some type of anti-gun policy. There has to be a line in the sand, a definable line in the sand, at which point that you demonize, boycott, and cut ties with said companies. Because if you're not going to do that, if you're going to go, oh, well, they did something that's anti-Second Amendment. Well, I've got a list that grows almost daily of about 300 different companies in this country that have at one time or another done stuff that is anti-Second Amendment. So, you know, that's a different conversation, I think, for a different day and a different show. But, you know, where is that line in the sand? Where do we say, okay, this at this point, no more?
Well, what I'm saying is that we contact the NRA themselves, or all of us that are NRA members, and saying your support or not even talking about it on Instagram or anything, that's at least complicit in some way, and you need to knock that off.
Yeah, well, they didn't say anything about the poor guy that was murdered by the cop in the mall, now did they? You know, and they, you know, there's so many things that the NRA stay silent about that. You know, it's like the only things that they come out is when they need to raise money. That's the only time you hear from them. It's like your brother-in-law. Only time you see him is when he needs to borrow money, right?
Why is this thing scrolling my chat so fast? Is there that many people talking, or it just updated, I guess? Anything going on out there? It's too much to read. You guys been watching, it looks like. Is there anything that they need to pull out of there that's valuable?
Well, a lot of arguments about the next election and stuff like that, and that Trump's going to be the obvious choice, and some people saying, you know, not to vote against him. Well, I don't necessarily agree with that. There's a primary coming up in 2020. We can make our choice then based on what happens between now and 2020. There's no locks on anybody.
I saw something about, and I don't know where this meme was coming from, and that's the problem with memes. I'm not saying they're ideal. They just cause, you know, they can spark question in your mind or whatever, and, you know, get you to start thinking. I saw one, though, that was, I forget what the image was, but it was like, I think 2 frames, and the first one was something about when Bush did the Gun Owners Protection Act. No, when Bush did the, whatever Bush did, what was Bush responsible for? He wasn't, was it Reagan? I think they were talking about 922R. So who enforced 922R? Pre-assault weapons ban. I guess that would have been
Bush.
Was it? And then Clinton did assault weapons ban. So when Bush was a meme basically saying Bush 1 did N20 or created 922R, he effectively banned the importation of semi-automatic rifles, right? And in response,
unless they were for sporting purposes, right?
Well, whatever. In response, though, of that action in his presidency, that the election results for Clinton or when Clinton won were because Bush did not get reelected, and the reason he did not get reelected is because there was a 19% independent vote, and Clinton got elected because most of the independent vote came from the Republicans. So this meme says
voting for Ross Perot, right?
They didn't bring that up. This meme talks about how Bush did the 922R, and in response, voters voted independent, and as the result, we got Clinton, who then gave us the assault weapons ban. So the meme seems to be suggesting that if we don't vote lockstep with Republicans, what we're going to get is the Democrats, because we divide ourselves. And I mean, I don't know if I'm never going to agree with that, because if you assume that the future is written and you vote accordingly, you're voting accordingly to whoever told you the future is written, right? But it's definitely a situation where you have to take the good and the bad, and if you want to affect change, you don't get to say it's either this or the right way. You know, it's either this horrible way or this perfect way. You have to deal with the mud in between dry and wet, right?
So we're operating off the premise that 922R, which is something that you got to figure that the vast majority of Americans have absolutely no clue about, did him in, and that's the read my lips, no new taxes is a large part of what did him in. So again, multi-dynamic voting block. No, definitely Perot. Perot was the result of, you know what I'm saying, of his failings.
But result is that's the 19%, like you said, like Denver said, that was Perot. So they're ignoring that part. I do not remember anything. I was around for that election. I don't remember anybody anywhere saying 922R, let's get rid of Bush. I wish we had that strong a Second Amendment movement back then. We do not, or we did not. So that was not a situation where people were like, hey, let's remember the semi-automatic import ban.
But then we brought Clinton in, and then you had the Republican Revolution following that, and then some good was actually done coming out of that a little bit.
I don't see any. I mean, the Republican Party will run, you know, there's no one that's going to run against Trump in 2020 on the Republican side. And the only possible candidates you have now are just old, worn out Democrats. Right. So, I mean, I don't even think that's the issue. Why is 2020 the issue right now? You know?
Right. Yeah, a lot can happen, and that's what I said out in the comments because somebody was talking about that, and I said, do you realize, you know, Trump wasn't on the radar until a year before election time, and Obama wasn't on the radar until a year before, you know, so, you know, we've seen people in that last quarter, right, in that final quarter or the final minutes of the game come in and win the presidency. It's happened. So, you know, yeah, I agree. I mean, why are we? That's kind of like Beto. You know, everybody has been, you know, talking about Beto and Beto. And, you know, there's a lot of game between now and 2020 that, you know, I don't know how Beto is going to fare between now and then.
Well, there's a lot of game or whatever, however but you stated it, but it's already the end of 2018, and if you're not thinking about running for president now, you're already behind the curve. You know what I mean? I mean, the Democrats are talking about running John Kerry or whatever. So I think we have to look past that. I've looked past 2020. I'm assuming that Trump's going to is going to win, and that somehow we have to train him to be a good Second Amendment president going forward. That's
well, I've said this a while. That one of the issues that fascinates me and I wonder about Trump is, you know, okay, he said a lot of stuff his first term, you know, and look at the, you know, no firearm regulation. Now we got the bump stock thing we're dealing with, yada, 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 the wall getting built. I mean, there's all kinds of other things. And you got to wonder if he gets into a lame duck session, what is he willing to do at that point? Because, you know, it's kind of like Obama and, you know, leaning over and talking to Medvedev or whoever it was and saying, hey, I have a lot more flexibility in my second term. You know, he doesn't have to worry about reelection. He doesn't have to worry about anything. So, I mean, he could throw out all kinds of executive orders. Good and bad is the problem with that. So that's why that's an interesting concept for me to ponder, is what happens with a lame duck Trump. What do we get? Do we get, you know, him striking all kinds of executive orders and pushing for, you know, rollbacks and actually going through with his promise that, you know, for every one new law we get rid of 2 old ones? You know, are we going to see that? I don't know. Honestly, I don't have that much faith in him. But
I think you're going to see the entire government slow down because you won't have, you know, you'll have a Democrat House and a Republican Senate and a moderate president. So nothing's going to get done, which is good in some ways. So
it'll be a horrible circus. Just wait for January. It's going to start. And I mean, we're going to have so much political theater. People are going to get disenfranchised. And I hope this doesn't happen. But, you know, the average rank and file person is going to get so disenfranchised with political issues, I think, with all the drama that's about to happen, that it's going to really hurt voter turnout and a lot of other things long term.
it's been such a nice break just as a citizen of the United States to not have to, whether it's on the internet or TV, whatever, to not be inundated with political commercials every 5 minutes.
Tony, what did you say there? And I said that's valid. I want to touch on that. I totally forgot because I'm reading everything now.
What were we talking about?
Oh, no, you said that you need to train Trump. You like to think that Trump's going to get reelected. I believe that not only should we be teaching our next, our president who might have a second term, but that effort will go a long way towards the next, whoever the president is, when they see the influence and the dedication that a community has, whether it be Mothers Against Drunk Driving, who had an awesome, effort towards a non-government solution to a social problem, whether it be the potheads, who somehow a bunch of potheads got recreational pot in like 11 states or something now. You're going to tell me that the potheads got together? You're going to tell me there's money behind recreational marijuana? We have things to learn out there. And I think that, like you said, teaching Trump or teaching the president, training him what we want, I think that's totally valid and useful, no matter what the next person who fills that seat is, because that kind of influence moves from presidency to presidency. It doesn't matter what color they are.
And there's the lesson is the George Bush lesson. Read my lips. No new taxes. You make a definitive statement like there will be a wall, and as well as other statements that he's made, the people remember things that are at least important to them, or they perceive as important to them. And he apparently has forgotten that.
So I asked in the comments out there on both the Gun channels and on the other side, to post a concise idea of what actions you think we should each take, so that we can compile that into the description here, and so that it can be seen by whoever might view this in the future. The text or whatever, the chat that people have been participating in will be rebroadcast when people watch this in the future. So I'm going to talk about what Dano just said there. Let's look at this. Talk about no new taxes.
The 8-year assault on your Second Amendment freedoms has come to a crashing end.
I think I would end it on that, because it's isn't that a completely parallel to the no new taxes?
It is a definitive statement, yes.
But let's see if anybody's got anything else out here. Send tweets. I like that one. Thanks, Dead Horse, for mentioning that. He is the most active we've seen on the main platforms. We have presence on those platforms. Right in the president, pointing at your chin. I don't know, roll call. That might be effective, but
maybe he's scratching his chin. He's thinking.
Maybe he needs to shave.
Look like a gun. I don't know if in school.
Roll call had a good idea for contributing to some of the, like the GOA and stuff that are nonprofit, are also possibly tax savings for you too, especially at the end of the year here.
Yeah, instead of worrying about saving money, I think about how much you spend on watching movies, how much you spend on sports, how much you spend on fancy clothes, how much you spend on all the luxury items that we are entitled to as the richest country on the planet, based on the individual drive for success that we all have, and that we're all have a right to have. We can think about where we're spending our resources, where we spend our time, where we spend our money, and don't worry about how you're going to save a buck contributing to our Second Amendment, but how you can divert funds that were used for other less meaningful things throughout the year. We're a pretty wealthy society. It's sad that we're worried about a couple of bucks, when in the grand scheme of things, it's a couple of bucks that would make some massive change for these organizations. Unfortunately, we're not seeing a bunch of comments coming in with concise calls to action, but we've come up with a few thanks to the contributions of everybody who's been participating in this effort towards the new media. By no means are we expecting you to watch this and be finished with it. We're encouraging you. We're challenging you to get up off your ass and to do stuff. This is a time for action. And complaining or mumbling is an action, but is it the most effective use of your presence here on the planet? Before we head out, Tony, got anything? We'll just kind of wrap up. If anybody's got anything, I can go. I'm going to go right to left this time instead of making Tony go first all the time. Slim, you got anything to leave us with?
No, I'm good. Thanks for having me. And yeah, definitely something we got to work on.
Right on. Well, I want to thank you for your participation, for jumping in here, but also your activism on Instagram. I notice your posts all the time, and they got some flavor. So I'm sure your reach will get people that some of us aren't hitting. So thanks for your efforts.
No problem, man.
Woods?
Definitely getting the paper out and writing the president. I think the handwritten idea is a great idea, as opposed to it would be way easier to email. But I think the letter is a better idea, even though you got to like go get a stamp and all that.
Right on. I think that's one of the most valuable ones we got too. At least it gives us a chance to do something. And I know a lot of us, we want to do something, right? We want to feel like we're doing something. So that's something we can do, and it'll have an effect. And maybe make a video about it, right? Or maybe post a blog about you putting the envelope in the mail or something. Let other people know that might not have been in this conversation. Dano?
I got nothing at the moment.
Awesome. Well, thanks for your years of effort on this. It's all for use if we can challenge people to get off and do stuff. Harry?
Any and all of what's been said, write those letters, send those tweets. Don't just sit and think about it. Do it. Either that or just sit still and bad stuff will happen. I mean, take charge.
Good point. We got good seats to watch whatever happens. If you just want to be an audience, we certainly live in a time when you got the best box seat to watch it all. And thanks for talking about getting off your ass. Thanks, Gary, for finding all those links to the White House and to the President Trump and whatnot, and for slapping those into the chat. You can't do that as a regular person over on YouTube, but if you're worth a shit, we'll make you a moderator, and then you can. Or if you're not worth a shit, you can go over to Gun Channels, and anybody can post links because we're about conversation over there. Dead horse?
I'm going to just be trying to convince people that I know, friends and family, like even my kids, to go comment on his Instagram, on his Twitter, the written letter. I think we should be doing it all, and not just to Trump, but to all of our elected officials, and letting them know that, you know, not only is the bump stock ban
Dude, that's
more of our right.
That's super valid. I don't think that's come up yet today. And that's super useful, because if Trump, every room he walks into, somebody's going, when are you gonna apologize, or when are you gonna stop that? I'm getting harassed about this. If every person he meets, including his social medias, that's an awesome point. And we have that ability. We have the ability to post all kinds of pictures of stuff, or all kinds of replies to stuff that we don't like, the way that your light is mounted or something, and let's put that effort into making these representatives be aware of our positions. Clover.
I posted, I dropped the links on both sides, Gun Channels and YouTube. I dropped the link for the final rule, for the text of the final rule. So, you know, I highly recommend people actually read that. Our politicians don't read it. Many of our organizations that are fighting for us, or seemingly fighting for us, don't actually read it. And the vast majority of people out there don't read it. They just go by headlines and snippets and whatever. So know what's going on. You can't fight the fight if you don't know the battle plan, or at least their battle plan. It's hard to counter and try to do things. So know what's going on. And also, if you don't, you know, you can be trying to make your argument in such a way that it's got holes in it. And if anybody on the opposite side, the anti-gun side, or for this bump stock man, has actually read this, and you know you haven't, and used it to plug holes in your position, and they're going to use it to blow holes in your position. So
Dude,
it's beneficial. It's beneficial to know what's going on.
That's awesome. Can you throw me the link internal, because I didn't grab the right link.
Yeah, here you go.
I'm going to put the link.
Yeah, there's some confusion out there, because I actually commented on KD's, and the one he read, he said was 136 pages. And I noticed on the Instagram you brought up earlier, it said 157 pages, and all the ones I've seen are 157 pages. So I don't know what the skinnier versions are, maybe it's just a smaller font or something like that. That could be the case. I don't know.
They often have draft versions before the final versions.
Well,
Yeah,
they'll also strip some of the garbage, like at the end, where it's just a bunch of something. Or
it's entirely possible, but that's straight from Justice.gov to the Justice Department from Justice.gov. So.
And I came in kind of late, so I don't know if any of you guys mentioned this or not, but apparently coming from binary trigger companies, none of this affects the binary triggers.
Yeah, I said that when I first came in. It covers that.
A nuance that is shame on them for making us think about this nuance when it's just So Tony, would you have the last word?
Oh, that's bad. I was just sitting here thinking about all the nonprofits I've been involved with when I was younger and remembering that grassroots feel that they had. And I guess that's where some of my disappointment comes with our I don't feel that our organizations are grassroots or they don't give me the grassroots feel. I wish there was a drug I could take that made me have that exciting grassroots feeling again. I think that's what we're missing. And it only happens spontaneously, it seems like. It doesn't seem to, you can't seem to be able to, call people to arms anymore, Anyway, I didn't mean to start another conversation. I was just thinking.
That's an excellent point, man. You wrapped it up well, because that's one of the frustrations I've had over the years too. I've seen that situation come and go, and unfortunately, it doesn't seem to change. But I would say the answer to your question, I've felt as being a participant that I've gotten more out of it than being an observer. And you don't have to do it at the level. I mean, again, writing a letter, being part of a discussion, or retweeting or reposting, or being part of the effort to share the knowledge, that can be a effort towards what you're talking about, being involved and being part of it. Well, again, thanks everybody for showing up. I think I am going to end it on this, and just a reminder that if you do nothing, that's a choice and it's a deliberate action.
The 8-year assault on your Second Amendment freedoms has come to a crashing end.